Chapter 456. The Azura demon statue continued to struggle on the ground, letting out bestial roars that shook the sky. However, the countless chains tightened and started to pull the Azura demon statue into the ground. The Azura demon statue struggled with all its might, but its body seemed to have sunk into a swamp as it slowly sank. The Azura demon statue let out an unwilling roar until it completely sank into the ground. Only then did the Azura demon statue calm down. If the Azura demon statue hadn't been summoned with Zhao Fu's blood, he wouldn't have been able to deal with it. Right now, he could only seal it underground. The Azura demon statue had no intelligence. Like a wild beast, it only had killing intent in its heart. This thing that had been summoned with 15 million corpses was actually unable to be controlled, and it could even kill its owner. It was quite a failure, but the Azura demon image's power was truly terrifying. When the city lords saw that the Azura demon statue was sealed, they let out a sigh of relief. Even with so many of them, they didn't have the confidence to face the Azura demon statue. "Your Highness, please forgive me." The two women, black and white impermanence, knelt on the ground and nervously asked for forgiveness from Zhao Fu. Something big almost happened because of them. Zhao Fu told them to get up, but he did not blame them. This time, he had underestimated the power of the forbidden magic and had been too arrogant. "Sir, it's best not to use those things in the future. They don't even exist in this world," a city lord kindly reminded Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu nodded and said, "Now that the matter has been resolved, everyone can return to your respective regions. I'll send someone to inform you if there's anything else." Hearing this, the city lords left one after another. In the end, only the white-clothed woman remained. She looked at Zhao Fu and asked, "What do you want this thing for?" Now that she had personally seen how terrifying the Azura demon image was, the woman in white felt quite uneasy. If this person used this power, the damage he would cause would be no less than that of an undead disaster. Zhao Fu looked at her and replied, "I don't know yet." At that moment, Zhao Fu wanted to use the Azura demon statue to do something. After all, this terrifying power could not be wasted, but he had not yet thought of how to use it. The white-robed woman snorted. "It's best if you don't use that power. Otherwise, you might lose control of it. Not only will you draw fire to yourself, but you'll also harm the common people." With that, the white-robed woman turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the horizon. As Zhao Fu watched the white-clothed woman leave, he naturally understood that he had to be extremely careful when dealing with this matter. He couldn't afford to be careless. Following this, Zhao Fu brought over 200,000 soldiers to bring the 400,000 residents back and started to clean up the mess in the system main cities. When Zhao Fu went over, he only saw ruins and corpses all over the ground. At the center of the city, there was a protective barrier that was perfectly fine. The protective barrier of a small city was already not that easy to break. The protective barrier of a great city was even more difficult. Without some time, it would be impossible to break it. The countless skeletons were only interested in living creatures, so they had no interest in destroying this place. Zhao Fu took out a city lord seal and deactivated the protective barrier before heading to the city hall. Looking at the golden cube floating in the air, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. This was the first system main city that he had obtained. Zhao Fu walked over and placed his hand on it. He chose to conquer it and then relocate it, and system announcements sounded out in his mind. System announcement. "Congratulations, you have conquered a system main city and obtained 5,000 achievement points." System announcement. "Because you're a legatee, you have conquered a system main city and obtained a large amount of the region's fate." System announcement. "You have relocated a system main city and obtained 820,000 EXP." System announcement. "Congratulations, you have obtained 200 war points." The surrounding structures slowly collapsed, and Zhao Fu picked up the cube that had turned into a city creation stone and quickly chose to leave. He then went to the other 3 system main cities and chose to conquer or relocate them. Most of the system announcements were the same, but there were some other ones. For example, Zhao Fu received news that Qin City had leveled up, as well as a region announcement and a reward announcement. System announcement. The Pouring Sun region's 4 system main cities have been conquered and relocated. This region will no longer spawn players. Not only did Zhao Fu hear this region announcement, but everyone else in China also heard it. However, they were all quite shocked. The Pouring Sun region was where that massive battle had taken place. They had never thought that not only had 15 million players been slaughtered, but even the 4 system main cities had not been able to escape such a fate. Now that Qin City had obtained 4 system main cities, its power would become even more monstrous. This made countless players even more afraid of Qin City. Following this, there was another reward announcement. Congratulations! You have conquered a region and obtained a region treasure chest. This region treasure chest was a pure gold treasure chest that was as big as a palm. There were all sorts of gems and diamonds on it, and one could tell at a glance that it was a good item. After Zhao Fu opened it, a blinding golden light shined out as a 1-meter-tall tree made of crystal appeared. Zhao Fu looked at it curiously. Reality tree, a tree that contains the power of reality. It will bear 5 reality fruits every day, and anyone who consumes this fruit will be able to enter the Heaven Awakened world. Only otherworlders can consume it. After consuming the reality fruit, one would be able to enter the Heaven Awakened world from the real world, making Zhao Fu feel quite shocked. With this reality tree, Zhao Fu would be able to completely ignore all threats in the real world. After all, his body would be in the Heaven Awakened world and would belong to a different world, so how could they threaten him? With Qin's power in the Heaven Awakened world, he did not fear anyone. Zhao Fu had always been quite worried. He was still too weak in the real world and did not have any power at all. It could be said that he was the kind of person who could be bullied by others without daring to retaliate. Now that he had this reality tree, Zhao Fu did not have to worry about this anymore. This allowed Zhao Fu's tense heart to completely relax. However, Zhao Fu did not plan to let his body enter the Heaven Awakened world because there were many things in the real world, such as intelligence reports. Moreover, he was already the proxy leader of the Ying family and had great power, so he would not be in much danger. The reality fruit should be used in times of crisis, allowing his body to enter the Heaven Awakened world and eliminating all worries. After obtaining this item, Zhao Fu could not help but laugh. This might not be very useful to ordinary system factions, but to Zhao Fu, it was incredibly valuable. Chapter 457. Cough. Seeing Qin City's massive gains, Zhao Fu wanted to laugh, but he felt a sweetness in his throat as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. The injuries he had just suffered were quite severe. Zhao Fu decided to rest for a few days. The past month or so had been quite tiring. He had been at the center of the ocean of bones every day and night, protecting the disaster cavalrymen to prevent anything unexpected from happening. He had been incredibly tense, and he couldn't relax at all. At the same time, he had destroyed 4 system main cities and obtained city creation stones. There were many things that he needed to take care of, so he returned to Qin City. Zhao Fu had the ocean of bones remain in this region for a few days while he returned to Qin City. He took out a large number of corpses and equipment and gave them to Li Si, Ba Qing, and the others to deal with. He then carefully planted the reality tree in a large flower pot. It would bear 5 reality fruits every day, which was quite important to Zhao Fu. Following this, Zhao Fu re-established 4 system main cities and appointed by Qi, Wei Liao, Wang Jian, and Meng Tian as city lords. They each had a city lord seal, and he ordered them to go to the Pouring Sun region to protect the disaster cavalrymen in case anything unexpected happened. Qin City now had the power of 4 system main cities, and the power it gave off was not any weaker than that of an ordinary system main city lord seal. Qin City had also leveled up into an intermediate city, and Zhao Fu looked at its stats. Village name, Qin City, epic, level, intermediate city village area. 1,600 square kilometers village territory, 51,800 square kilometers popular support, 85 special stats, territory crop output plus 130%, territory crop growth time minus 130%, population limit plus 95%, residence stats plus 9, soldiers stats plus 10%, population attraction plus 115%, high-grade attraction plus 115%, subsidiary village limit 2, 400 subordinate villages, Logue Village, Jean Village, Doran Village, Leaf Family Village, Wolf Village, Ferocious Tiger Village. This was the current attributes of Qin City. Zhao Fu glanced at it briefly. There was nothing special about it, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. The only thing that was worth celebrating was that Qin had almost leveled up. Now that he had obtained the EXP from 4 main cities, he was halfway to becoming a great city. Once he became a great city, Qin wouldn't be far from becoming a great city. After returning to his room, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on his bed and swallowed a healing pill, slowly healing himself as he rested. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the afternoon of the second day. The orange glow of the setting sun shone into Zhao Fu's room. Zhao Fu, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, Zhao Fu's injuries had fully recovered, and he was full of energy. The tiredness from before had been swept away. Zhao Fu comfortably stretched and got off the bed. He opened the door to his room and was surprised to find that Xianru had been waiting outside for some time. Looking at her standing under the setting sun, it was as if there was a golden veil draped over her body. Her graceful figure, as well as her faintly discernible face, made her look incredibly beautiful. "What is it?" Zhao Fu asked. Xianru smiled as she replied, "Your Majesty, everyone knows about what happened in Guanyang City. Everyone knows about what happened at Guanyang, so I've come to congratulate your Highness." Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed. He knew that she had come for a reason, so he said, "All right, tell me what it is." "What is it?" Xianru understood and slightly lowered her head as she asked, "Your Majesty, how are you going to deal with the Emperor Phoenix statue?" The Emperor Phoenix statue has been there for more than a month, but it hasn't received any Phoenix Chi. "Your Majesty, please don't waste such a godly item." Because Zhao Fu had been so busy with the undead disaster, he had almost forgotten about this matter. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu nodded and said, "Come with me." Following this, Zhao Fu went to the meeting hall and gathered many of his generals to discuss this matter. Zhao Fu had changed his mind about these ordinary people. Before, he didn't want to harm these ordinary people, so he let them off and focused on the large families. However, in this battle, they had caused great harm to Qin. If they gathered hundreds of millions of players and fought with their full strength, even if they didn't destroy the undead disaster, they would still be heavily injured, and they wouldn't be able to pose much of a threat to Zhao Fu. As such, Zhao Fu couldn't ignore them anymore, and he had to do something. Otherwise, with so many players united, it would be incredibly difficult to deal with Qin. Right now, Qin had the undead disaster, but what if he didn't have it? With Qin's current strength, it would be incredibly difficult to win. What's more, they were undying, while Qin's soldiers would die if they died. It wouldn't be a fair battle at all. Right now, Qin had to face far too many enemies. Not only were there countless factions in the Legacy Land, but there were also true empires, kingdoms, dukedoms, and god kingdoms in the future. Zhao Fu felt that Qin's strength was still too small, and he wouldn't be able to make a decisive difference. Of course, these were all things for the future. Right now, what was most important was Zhao Fu and his subordinates, and they decided to issue a Qin writ. Anyone who had a Qin writ could establish a faction that was subordinate to Qin. As long as a faction had a Qin writ, it would receive Qin's approval, and it would be immune to Qin's attacks. Regions with Qin writ would be immune to the undead disaster, and they would also receive Qin's attention. As long as it was a faction that belonged to Qin, it wouldn't be attacked by Qin. Apart from that, any faction or person would be viewed as an enemy of Qin. Wherever the undead disaster went, it would be expelled, and the outcome would be certain death. Zhao Fu wouldn't provide any support to these factions because they only belonged to Qin in name. He didn't even know if they were loyal or not, and he didn't want Qin to use resources to support them. only to be betrayed by them. Originally, Zhao Fu wouldn't be able to do this, but with how terrifying the undead disaster was, as well as the massacre of 15 million people, he would be able to create widespread panic and force countless people to join Qin's faction. He would also be able to use them to destroy all factions that didn't belong to Qin. As they attacked, with Qin's support, it would create an atmosphere that people would die if they didn't join Qin's faction. Perhaps this would cultivate a group of players that were loyal to Qin, but it would also make it impossible for them to deal with Qin's attacks. In this way, Qin's resistance would become smaller and smaller. With the help of the undead disaster, Qin would be able to establish a kingdom as soon as possible to deal with the crisis after the real world was devoured. After receiving the demon god's message, Zhao Fu wouldn't be so short-sighted. He also understood what would happen in the future and how terrifying the future would be. It was hard to say whether Qin would still exist at that time. Chapter 458. The Holy Daughter Writ was to help Great Qin choose women with Phoenix Qi, and each region had to offer at least 10 of them. Of course, Great Qin could not reveal its plan to collect Phoenix Qi, so those who met the requirements of the Holy Daughter Writ could not reveal their Phoenix Qi. Qin's requirements were that the women had to be between 12 and 45 years old, which was quite a big age range. Zhao Fu had wanted to set the age range to be between 18 and 30 years old, and it would be best if they were virgins. Only then would he be able to reconcile with Qin's identity. However, under Xianru's persuasion, Zhao Fu found that he was just like ordinary people, and he was bound by worldly morality. As an adult, he should only care about his own interests, while children cared about right and wrong. This was how the world worked, and as a king, he had to prioritize Qin's interests. What Qin needed was Phoenix Qi, and as long as they could provide it, he did not care about anything else. It did not matter what history said, as history was written by those who succeeded. Apart from the age range, there was another requirement, which was that the women had to be beautiful, and they had to be extremely beautiful. Ordinary women did not need to be beautiful. As the more beautiful they were, the more Phoenix Qi they would have. Moreover, the aristocratic families had to offer a woman from the main family, as they were aristocratic families and had fate legacies. It was very likely that a woman from the main family would have Phoenix Qi. At the same time, Zhao Fu also wanted to take them as hostages. Aristocratic families were much more powerful than ordinary people, and it was always good to have more restrictions. Whoever became a saintess would be greatly beneficial to their family and aristocratic families. Not only would they directly belong to Qin and receive Qin's protection, but they would also receive Qin's support. Without any benefits, how could anyone become a saintess willingly? In the early stages, it was mainly voluntary, but in the later stages, it would not be so troublesome, and they could directly plunder through war. Since these ordinary people dared to oppose Qin, Zhao Fu did not care about them. As for the women who became saintesses, they would be imprisoned in the palace for the rest of their lives. As for the aristocratic families, unless they were conquered by powerful forces, they would not submit. However, Qin would treat them even more cruelly than aristocratic families, as they were aristocratic families and had to be treated differently. Of course, if they surrendered willingly, Qin would treat them well. After carefully discussing all kinds of relevant matters, Qin also began to officially issue 2 kinds of orders to the public. It was like a meteorite falling into the sea, setting off huge waves and shaking the whole world. Qin is too barbaric and overbearing. If he doesn't join, he'll die. He even wants every region to offer him beauties. He's the only person in the world who dares to do something like this. Does he really think that he's an emperor and wants to build a huge harem? Also, we need those aged between 12 and 45. Shouldn't everyone in this age group be on the list? He's too much of a beast and too much of a scum. Everyone's original impression of Qin was that he was cruel and bloodthirsty. Now, 2 more impressions were added: barbaric, domineering, and licentious. Now, Qin's reputation was completely ruined. Although everyone was resentful, no one dared to say no. Compared to the resentment in their hearts, they were more afraid of Qin. If they didn't obey, they would slaughter the whole district. How could they dare to say anything? If they said that they would be suppressed by absolute power and treated inhumanely, they would no longer have any illusions about Qin. The merciless killing had proved that Qin wasn't kind or merciful, and he definitely wouldn't let them off. At this moment, many people resented the ordinary people who had participated in the Battle of Guanyan. Originally, Qin had been competing with the other factions, but ordinary people had joined in. Now, Qin had turned his anger onto everyone, and no one would have an easy time. Now, they had to join Qin's faction, or else they would be attacked by other people who had joined Qin's faction. If the undead disaster attacked, they would be expelled, and it would be almost impossible for them to survive. Under Qin's threat, many people had already submitted. The northern side's factions that had started to oppose Qin didn't have much confidence anymore, and a small portion of people wanted to surrender to Qin. The ordinary people hurriedly tried to think of ways to join Qin's faction or obtain Qin medallions. As for Holy Daughter medallions, every region had at least 10 of them. These 10 Qin medallions were not compulsory, and they were voluntary. This was because they couldn't be forced. If they didn't want to, they could just die and go to another region or not enter the Heaven Awakened world. What would they do to them? Why would they give up their bodies for a region that had nothing to do with them? In the beginning, they would rely on the benefits to attract them, but in the future, when the real world was devoured, they would no longer be able to do anything about it. If a large family wanted to join Great Qin, they had to offer up a woman from the main family. This was compulsory, and large families were different from ordinary people. They had foundations, and Great Qin could threaten them. If they did not want to be destroyed, someone had to bear the fate of the entire family. As such, this was compulsory. Zhao Fu didn't think too much about this, because it was Xianru who had suggested it. Zhao Fu thought about it, and felt that there weren't any disadvantages to it. It was all for Qin's sake, so he agreed. Xianru was naturally quite happy that Zhao Fu agreed with her. This was the type of person she wanted, someone who wasn't bound by anything and only worked for the most powerful kingdom. Only such a person would be able to establish a truly peerless dynasty. Xianru didn't care too much about the ordinary people and large families, as they weren't Qin's subjects and would obstruct Qin's faction. As such, there was no need to care about their lives and deaths. All Zhao Fu had to do was use them up. After hearing about the 2 decrees that Qin had issued, a high-ranking official was so angry that he slammed the table and said, "This legatee Qin is simply too lawless. He's so domineering and wants countless people's women to play with. He's a tyrant and incapable ruler, and if the world fell into his hands, how could it have a good life?" A chubby middle-aged man sighed and said, "Even if he's like this, what can we do about him? We can reduce the scale of the undead disaster, but we won't be able to stop it. It'll be very difficult to gather so many people this time, and more importantly, Qin has made us his targets. All of our region's factions will be cleared out, which will be a great loss for us. We won't be able to control our regions in the future, and this will have a great impact on us." Chapter 459. Everyone inwardly nodded. However, there was another problem. When would the regional passageway open? They couldn't just wait like this, or else the undead disaster would have already ravaged the entirety of China. When that time came, even if the regional passageway opened, they wouldn't be able to deal with Qin at all. This matter couldn't be dealt with in a hurry, so the important governmental figures continued to discuss. The various dynasty legatees and nation legatees tried their best to resist Qin's orders. After all, Qin's undead disaster was already terrifying enough. If he could also mobilize a large number of ordinary players, they wouldn't be able to deal with him at all, and they would be at an absolute disadvantage. There was no way for them to reconcile with Qin. After all, nation legatees were enemies, and only when one side was destroyed would the other side be victorious. It was incredibly difficult for nation legatees to coexist. Moreover, everyone wanted to unify China, and there wouldn't be a second nation within their own territory. The various dynasty legatees and nation legatees definitely wouldn't submit, nor would they easily surrender. Qin definitely wouldn't let them off either. That was the relationship between nation legatees and nation legatees. By now, The northern side's factions were like a plate of loose sand, and Su Yin still hadn't found a reliable way to deal with them. The ancient clans had been discussing Qin's situation, and they were quite displeased with Qin's orders. He had massacred ordinary players and dragged everyone else in, forcing them to make a decision. Before, the undead disaster would only cause great losses to the factions, and ordinary players wouldn't suffer much. However, now that everyone had been dragged in, not a single one of them would be able to escape. For Huaxia, this is an act of destroying their foundation. However, this act of destroying their foundation was caused by the war they launched. Who can they blame? The ancient clans didn't care too much about the Holy Daughter Medallion, and the 100 schools of thought were the same. After all, Qin was only taking in women, which was normal for an emperor. Moreover, how could these women compare to the rest of the world? As such, these factions only cared about Qin's medallion, and they didn't care about the Holy Daughter Medallion. Many people guessed that the 100 Dragon Sun pill, which was ranked 10th in the Disaster Festival, had been claimed by Qin, or else he wouldn't have been able to deal with so many women. However, Hawaii was different. They didn't care about the Qin token, but the Holy Maiden token. They didn't care about the situation in the world, as long as they had business to do. However, the Holy Maiden token forced women to sell their bodies, which made many women in Huayu angry. As a force made up entirely of women, they had a certain feminist ideology. They believed that women should be above men, and that men should submit to women and attach themselves to women. Everything revolved around women, not men. They wanted to build the Flower Moon Kingdom, a kingdom where women were the masters and everything depended on women. It was a kingdom where women were superior to men. Therefore, they were very angry at Qin's behavior of treating women as objects, which made them change their original idea of reconciling with Qin. When many forces were discussing Qin's 2 orders, Qin also began to carry out another plan. During the undead disaster, Zhao Fu had ordered Little Sha and a few experienced killers to continuously train the members of the Eternal Night faction, and the number of members had reached 30,000. Now was the time for them to show their worth. Zhao Fu felt that he needed some help to carry out the 2 orders. He needed to make them more afraid of Qin, so that they would give in and carry out Qin's orders. First, Zhao Fu wanted to take revenge on the 4 regions around the 8th region. These 4 regions and the 8th region had joined forces to launch this war against Qin, and they would definitely suffer Qin's crazy revenge. The 8th region had already become a wasteland, so there was no need to count it. Therefore, Zhao Fu set his sights on the other 4 regions. Originally, Zhao Fu had wanted to divide the undead disaster into 4 groups and have them invade the 4 regions separately. However, Zhao Fu was afraid that the undead disaster's power would be too scattered. If they joined forces with the other regions again and formed 4 armies of millions of soldiers to ambush the undead army, Qin might lose. As such, Zhao Fu wanted to carry out the 2 orders first to disperse the undead disaster's power. Most of the people in these 4 regions had participated in the war, and now that they had died, the 4 regions were quite empty. However, people quickly respawned. Because many of the factions in these 4 regions had died, they were still quite weak, so they were easy to deal with. Zhao Fu's order was to wipe out all of the factions, leaving no one alive. As long as he didn't go too far, they wouldn't be afraid. The 30,000 members of the Eternal Night faction were quite excited. This was their first time carrying out a mission. They all put on their black hoods and tied their hidden blades to their arms, and their eyes revealed a desire to kill. Back then, Zhao Fu had ordered Little Sha and a few other killers to train a group of killing machines, so the training was incredibly cruel. It was said that hundreds of people had been killed or injured. Even though there had been some casualties, it had ensured the Eternal Night faction's strength. It was a dark and windy night, and the temperature was quite cool, making it perfect for sleeping. It made it easy for people to relax, and it was a good time to start killing. The Eternal Night faction's people had already arrived at the 4 regions through teleportation channels and started to carry out their killing plan. One after another, human figures appeared on the roofs and streets. Right now, the system main cities were completely silent, and not a single system main city soldiers were patrolling. After all, they had signed a contract with Zhao Fu, and they knew that the 4 city lords in the Pouring Sun region had been killed and that the system main city had been completely massacred. As such, when Zhao Fu came to find them, they didn't hesitate to agree. After all, if they didn't agree, they would suffer the same fate as the Pouring Sun region. With their strength, how could they defeat 32 city lords? Zhao Fu originally had 28 city lords, and because they had destroyed the 8th region, they had 4 more. This meant that if they didn't agree, each of them would have to face attacks from 8 city lords. After signing the contract, Zhao Fu wouldn't attack anyone from the system main cities, but he could kill players within the system main cities. In other words, even if Qin killed people on the streets, no one would care. Now, Qin's strength was enough to force the city lords to compromise. This would have been impossible before. With the system main city's tacit approval, Qin would be able to do as he pleased and infiltrate the various factions and start killing. He didn't hide his voice or smell, and pained cries sounded out in the night. The stench of blood spread out, and the entire system main city was covered in a dangerous and oppressive atmosphere, making it so that ordinary people didn't dare to leave. Chapter 460. As for the governmental faction, ancient clans, 100 schools of thought, and Flower Moon, Zhao Fu did not plan to show mercy. They had put in a lot of effort in this battle, and Zhao Fu had already been very kind not to take revenge on them for sealing the Chaos Imperial Star. Now, they had allied together to deal with Qin. Did they really think that Qin was easy to bully? If Zhao Fu did not teach them a lesson again and again, they would continue to think that Qin would not do anything to them. Because these factions were discussing the 2 orders that Qin had given out, they had not expected Qin to suddenly attack, and they hurriedly responded. However, Qin's assassins did not care and stabbed their swords into their throats, ending their lives and completing the first killing trial. Within the governmental faction, a handsome-looking young man held a saber and faced off against 5 Qin's assassins. However, he was already greatly outnumbered, and wounds appeared on his body as he yelled, "Who are you? Why are you attacking us? Do you know what faction we belong to?" Ordinary people did not dare to offend governmental factions. Apart from the fact that the governmental faction was not weak, there was another reason for this. If you offended them, you would not have a good life in the real world. No one replied to him, and Great Qin did not have time to bother with him. A skinny figure suddenly attacked, and a blood-red light flashed as a long gash appeared on the young man's chest. The young man powerlessly fell to the ground, but he did not die and still had a trace of life force. Little Shah's attack was incredibly precise, and he looked at the young man on the ground in a daze before saying to the people beside him, "Take him away." A few of Qin's assassins obeyed and went to tie up the young man and fed him a few healing pills. This young man was the son of a major figure in the governmental faction, and his status was quite prestigious. Zhao Fu did not kill these people and had other plans. Within the ancient clans, a valiant-looking young man held a large spear and vigorously stabbed towards Tuoba Qing. Tuoba Qing cried out and slashed out with her heavy sword, sending the young man flying and knocking him unconscious. A valiant-looking young man from the school of military lay in a pool of blood, and Wang Ergu calmly said to the people beside him, "Take him away and treat his injuries." "Yes, my lord." Several Qin assassins obeyed the order, walked over, lifted the young man's body, and left quickly. Within Flower Moon, a beautiful woman heard the sounds of fighting outside and immediately understood that the situation was bad. She wanted to leave the Heaven-Awakened world, but she found that she was in battle mode and could not leave. For the time being, she didn't know which force had suddenly attacked. Now, with the release of Qin's order, everyone who didn't belong to Qin's force would be in danger. At this time, the inside of the organization was empty. There were basically not many people, and there was no way they could defend against this menacing force. She rationally chose to go to the back door and was about to escape through the back door. However, just as she walked out, she saw a bewitching woman smiling and waiting for her. Just as she was about to do something, Lu Mei's body suddenly blurred and appeared in front of her. Lu Mei's fist landed on her abdomen, causing her to lose all ability to resist. Then, she was also taken away by several Qin assassins. Overnight, shocking news spread out that countless factions in the 4 regions had been destroyed and many innocent ordinary people had died. Blood flowed all over the system, main cities, and player corpses were everywhere. In fact, the system main cities didn't even care about people being killed on the streets. It could be seen just how arrogant Qin was. The governmental faction, ancient clans, Flower Moon, and various other factions immediately found out that their factions had been destroyed, causing them to feel both shocked and furious. Qin didn't give them any face at all and had killed all of their factions. It could be seen that Qin's attitude towards them had changed, and he wouldn't show them any mercy. Qin's cold-bloodedness forced them to take Qin seriously. This was because from now on, Qin would also act against them, and if they dared to do anything, Qin wouldn't hesitate to slaughter them all. What shocked them even more was that after Qin took away the people with high statuses in their factions, their bodies disappeared in the real world. This caused countless people to feel incredibly shocked, and they couldn't understand what was going on. How could their bodies disappear in the real world? This most likely had something to do with Qin, but they didn't know how Qin had done it. Qin didn't hide anything and announced that Qin had obtained a method to bring people from the real world into the Heaven Awakened world. Whether or not the 6 people who had been brought into the Heaven Awakened world would depend on their faction's performance. This shocked everyone in the world. Qin had obtained such a terrifying method. This meant that in the future, players would no longer be safe in the Heaven Awakened world. This officially announced that players' undying privileges would disappear. With this method, the danger level increased by more than 10 times. It wasn't just the countless factions, but also ordinary people. Only when their lives were truly threatened would they feel fear. Now, who dares to say a single word about Qin? There won't be any more, as this is a true death. It's not like in the Heaven Awakened world. Now, who isn't afraid of death? All factions started to truly fear Qin, because if they lost to him, they wouldn't have any more chances. After all, how could a dead person have any chances? Under the threat of death, the countless factions felt incredibly terrified. They realized that they didn't have enough strength, so they no longer wanted to oppose Qin. They started to carry out the 2 writs that Qin had given out. Even the factions had no way to do anything. So how could ordinary people do anything? They could only obey. Qin's writs and Holy Daughter writs quickly spread throughout China, and many people asked how to obtain Qin's writs. As for how to obtain Holy Daughter writs, it was very detailed. As long as one was an exquisite beauty, it would be fine. Women from large families could also obtain Holy Daughter writs. In actuality, Holy Daughter writs could also be used as Qin's writs, as the factions that had Holy Daughter writs also belonged to Qin. However, they were slightly different. One required a woman to fulfill certain conditions, while the other required some other conditions. The factions that obtained Holy Daughter writs would also receive some support from Qin, while those that obtained Qin's writs would not receive any support, and they wouldn't be as important as Holy Daughter writs. As for how to obtain Qin's writs, Zhao Fu wanted to quickly expand it, so he didn't set any strict conditions. If one fulfilled all of the conditions, they could go to the Ying family to obtain Qin's writs and obtain Qin's acknowledgement. This caused people from all over China to go to the Ying family. Many foreign factions saw how powerful Qin was and wanted to obtain Qin's writs. After Qin swept through China, they would be next. Chapter 461. The Ying family's family leaders followed Zhao Fu's orders and gave out Qin's decrees with smiles on their faces. Looking at the sea of people, they felt that it wouldn't be long before Qin would be able to restore the Ying kingdom. The mission that had been passed down for thousands of years was finally going to be fulfilled in their generation. So how could they not feel happy? At the same time, they did not like that Qin's legacy had been obtained by someone from the collateral family, and they did not approve of it. They felt that this was a humiliation to the Ying family. But now, it seemed that they were quite glad that he had obtained Qin's legacy. Now, let alone the Ying family, no one in the world could rival him. The other dynasty legatees were also weaker than him, and he was fated to be someone like the founding emperor. With him as Qin's legatee, the Ying family was truly fortunate. What do you think we should do? My son is in their hands, and if we do anything, with Qin's temper, he won't hesitate to kill my son. A bearded, middle-aged man anxiously said to the others. The governmental faction had been discussing how to deal with Qin, but they had never thought that Qin would suddenly reveal a method to bring people from the real world into the heaven-awakened world. They had no idea how Qin had obtained this. If the heaven-awakened world devoured the real world in the future, it would not be strange for their bodies to be brought into the heaven-awakened world. However, this method was simply too shocking. A square-faced, middle-aged man said, "Old Joe, don't worry. Your son should be fine, and we're currently discussing this. We'll give you a satisfactory answer." Hearing this, the bearded, middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. An elder from the Xingtian clan said angrily, "Qin's legatee has gone too far. Not only did he slaughter all of our people, but he also took one of our direct descendants hostage. Now that he has such a method, who would dare to make an enemy out of him?" An elder said, "I told you long ago that Qin isn't someone to be trifled with. Forget about sealing the Emperor's star, but we've done many things against him. So how could he not take revenge on us? We have no choice but to negotiate. Even though the undead disaster will greatly damage China's vitality, it will also create a powerful empire. Moreover, since the undead disaster will sweep through China, it will also sweep through other regions. In terms of strength, China will be about the same as the other regions." The other elders nodded, agreeing with this idea and advocating peace talks. A woman in Flower Moon said, 14th sister has been imprisoned by Qin. Not only does Qin have an unstoppable undead disaster, but he also has such a terrifying ability. Almost no one dares to make a move against Qin. If we want to go against Qin by ourselves, we'll undoubtedly be seeking death. Also, if we make a move, Qin will immediately kill 14th sister. Let's negotiate peace. This is already a foregone conclusion, and there's no faction that can stop Qin. The other women felt some fear toward Qin because they knew that if they went against Qin and fell into Qin's hands, the only outcome would be death. In fact, they might even suffer a fate worse than death. It seemed that Qin's legatee was interested in beauties, and if they fell into Qin's hands, they would be used as sex toys. They would be toyed with by him every day. As such, the women didn't want to say anything and agreed to negotiate peace. Seeing this, the mature woman could only sigh and say, "All right, I'll give it to you. Let's carry out the plan to reconcile with Qin. Big sis, can you leave this to me?" Suddenly, Su Yiyin, who was sitting to the side, spoke to the mature woman. The mature woman thought about it and felt that Su Yiyin seemed quite confident, so she nodded and left the negotiation to her. Facing the current Qin, the factions didn't have much confidence in resisting, so they started to negotiate. As more and more people started to negotiate, the northern side's Qin resistance alliance was on the verge of collapse. Within Qin City, Zhao Fu was wearing his cloak as he sat on a chair. Below him stood 6 people. There were 4 men and 2 women, and they were all important figures of the various factions. Back then, Zhao Fu had captured them to use as hostages and show them the method that Qin had obtained to bring bodies from the real world into the heaven-awakened world. Adding on the fact that his family had been destroyed, countless people felt a deep fear towards Qin. From the very beginning, Zhao Fu had never wanted ordinary people to like Qin. Instead, he wanted them to feel fear and respect. As for the method to bring their bodies into the heaven-awakened world, of course, it was through Zhao Fu using reality fruits. After 2 days, the reality tree had produced 10 reality fruits, and 6 of them had been used by them. As for the remaining 4, Zhao Fu kept 1 for himself in case of danger. The 6 people below all nervously stood there. They knew that their bodies had already entered the heaven-awakened world and could never leave. Once they died, they would truly die, and their lives would be decided by the person above them with a single thought. Moreover, they knew who the person sitting above them was. It was the incredibly ferocious and bloodthirsty legatee Qin. The outside world had always heard how terrifying he was, and now that the 6 of them were standing under his aura, they started to feel quite afraid. Zhao Fu could sense their nervousness and laughed as he said, "Don't worry, I won't kill you right now. It depends on your faction's performance. Just stay in Qin City, and I won't mistreat you." Hearing this, the 6 people let out a sigh of relief. Their lives had been saved for now. A handsome young man from the governmental faction said, "In actuality, the Zhou family has no intention of becoming enemies with Qin, but the situation forced us to do so. Please let me go, Your Majesty. The Zhou family will never become enemies with Qin again." After he spoke, the woman from Flower Moon also said, "Flower Moon has no intention of offending Qin either. We were just doing business, so please let me go. In the future, Flower Moon will never become enemies with Qin, and we can even cooperate with Qin in many ways." The remaining people all said the same thing. They weren't stupid. They knew that they could die at any moment if they stayed here. They understood that after that battle, countless factions had given up on becoming enemies with Qin, and their factions had long since given up on opposing Qin. However, one person coldly harumphed and said to the other 5 people, "Weaklings." This person was from the Xingtian clan, and Xingtian was a war god from ancient legends. He had heaven-toppling power and was extremely warlike. However, that was the Xingtian of legends. In the real world, the Xingtian clan's people were all warlike as well. Chapter 462. Zhao Fu didn't care about their words. Since he had brought them to Qin City, it was almost impossible for them to return alive. As such, he couldn't agree to their request. However, after looking at the Xingtian clan member, Zhao Fu felt that he was quite courageous, and he was neither servile nor overbearing. Even though his aura was weaker than Zhao Fu's, he seemed to like fighting. "I'll think about it. You can all leave now." Even though Zhao Fu had already made his decision, he didn't completely refuse them. He gave them a bit of hope and told them to stay here. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the other 5 people obediently prepared to leave. However, that Xingtian clan member suddenly said, "Emperor Qin, if we had 30 million soldiers in that battle, we definitely wouldn't have lost so miserably. At the very least, our plan would have succeeded." Zhao Fu frowned. This Xingtian clan member was quite arrogant and seemed quite disobedient. So what? There are no ifs in war, only wins and losses. In the end, you'll lose and I, Qin, will win. Zhao Fu said calmly as his gaze fell on that Xingtian clan member. "Oomph." The Xingtian clan member coldly harumphed and loudly said, "That's because your Qin is good." Before he could finish speaking, Zhao Fu pointed with his finger, and a terrifying power shot out from his finger, sending the young man flying back. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and fainted on the ground. In the entire Qin City, no one had ever dared to speak to Zhao Fu like this in the main hall. Did they really think that Zhao Fu was a good person? This young man was quite stubborn, and this had something to do with Zhao Fu. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still of some use to Zhao Fu would have killed him. The main hall immediately fell into a serious atmosphere, and the other 5 people felt quite startled. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to do anything as they thought to themselves, "Emperor Qin is indeed incredibly ruthless. Take them away." Zhao Fu wasn't interested in paying attention to this group of people, and a few soldiers prepared to take them away. "Your Highness." Shinru's eyes flashed with a violet light, and a trace of a smile appeared on her face as she spoke to Zhao Fu. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt a bit confused, but after thinking about it, he understood. He waved his hand and signaled for the soldiers to take the other 4 men away, leaving only the 2 women behind. Both of them started to feel uneasy. "They have Phoenix Chi?" Zhao Fu turned to Shinru and asked. Shinru smiled and nodded as she replied, "They have quite a bit of Phoenix Chi, so Your Majesty should start sending Phoenix Chi into the Emperor Phoenix statue." Hearing her words, Zhao Fu's gaze fell on the 2 women again. They were both in their early 20s, and there was nothing to say about their appearances. Their facial features were delicate, their skin was fair, and their figures were slim. They were considered to be pretty beauties. This wasn't just because they had a lot of Phoenix Chi. The reason they had a lot of Phoenix Chi was because one of them was a member of Flower Moon. Flower Moon was one of the two most ancient factions in China, so Zhao Fu naturally knew about it. The Flower Moon appeared a little later than the ancient clans, but it also had thousands of years of history. Not only was it powerful, but the luck it had gathered was also not weak. Otherwise, it would not have existed for so long. The other was the head of an aristocratic family. He had obtained an aristocratic family's legacy, so his luck was not weak either. Zhao Fu also understood that only with the support of great luck would there be more Phoenix Chi born. He knew some of the reasons for the amount of Phoenix Chi. What are your names? Zhao Fu looked at the two women and asked. The two women had a bad premonition, but they couldn't disobey Zhao Fu's words. They knew what would happen to them. The one on the left belonged to Hua Yu, and she was a sweet-looking woman. My name is Miao Qianming. The one on the right belonged to an aristocratic family, and it was a mature and knowledgeable woman. She also bowed and said, Your Majesty, my name is Bai Qin. Zhao Fu nodded and looked at Xinru. Xinru picked up a brush and quickly wrote 2 pieces of paper before looking at Zhao Fu and nodding. Let's go, Zhao Fu said as he walked down from above. They obediently followed behind Zhao Fu, and the bad premonition in their hearts became stronger and stronger. Xinru rolled up the 2 pieces of paper and followed behind Zhao Fu. Following this, Zhao Fu brought them to a tall stage, the Heaven Prayer Platform. This was the first time Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin had seen a legatee's Heaven Prayer Platform, and they both looked quite curious. Zhao Fu came to the Emperor Phoenix statue and took the 2 pieces of paper from Xinru before taking out the Imperial Ruler's seal. Now that he had the Imperial Ruler's seal, which contained great fate, he could directly confer titles to the 2 of them. Otherwise, he would have to go through a ceremony. You two, stand properly. Zhao Fu looked down at the words on the paper before looking up at Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin. Hearing this, Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin immediately obeyed Zhao Fu's orders and straightened their bodies as they looked at Zhao Fu in confusion. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and a formless energy spread out, lifting the 2 pieces of paper into the air before spreading them out. Zhao Fu pressed the Imperial Ruler's seal against the 2 pieces of paper. The 2 ordinary pieces of paper immediately gave off rays of dignified and solemn golden light, making them seem quite extraordinary. Wu, Emperor Qin, the future ruler of the Qin Empire, I hereby bestow upon you the titles of Imperial Concubines, and you will now officially become Emperor Qin's Imperial Concubines. After speaking, Zhao Fu waved his hand, and the 2 pieces of paper turned into rays of golden light that shot into the 2 women's bodies. Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin still didn't understand what was going on. It seemed that they had been made imperial concubines by Emperor Qin. However, it had been so simple and fast that they hadn't been able to react at all. Zhao Fu looked at the 2 women, and after conferring the titles, a phoenix cry sounded out as golden auras rose up from the 2 women's bodies, causing them to feel incredibly shocked. The golden auras seemed to be attracted by something, and they floated towards the Emperor Phoenix statue and fused into it. After fusing with the golden auras, the Emperor Phoenix statue seemed to have gained life and came to life. The Emperor Phoenix statue flapped its wings, twisted its body, and raised its feet. Its movements were quite rusty, but it quickly adapted to its body. Soon, the Emperor Phoenix's movements became incredibly nimble, and it flew in the sky. Its body was made of crystal, and it gave off waves of golden light. It looked like a living Emperor Phoenix, and it gave off a massive aura. Zhao Fu felt quite shocked. The Emperor Phoenix statue had only obtained the Phoenix Chi from these 2 women, and it already had such power. If it obtained more Phoenix Chi, it would become even more powerful, and if it had a massive amount of Phoenix Chi, it might not be any weaker than a clan armament. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he ordered people to bring Miao Qianming and Bai Yiqin away and told them to treat them well. Chapter 463. After returning to the real world, Zhao Fu found that countless factions representatives had gathered at the Ying family's residence. A luxurious hall was filled with people, and it was bustling with noise and excitement. The people who had come were all rich and noble, and they wore beautiful clothes and spoke elegantly. Following this, a young man walked in with a group of bodyguards, causing everyone to fall silent. Countless people's gazes gathered on the young man's body. Reconciliation. Zhao Fu agreed. He wanted to reduce the resistance. If they destroyed them one by one, it would take too much time and effort, and they would definitely resist to the death. Qin was mainly relying on the undead disaster. Even though it seemed like the undead disaster was unstoppable, if they gathered a few teams of 20 million players and worked together, they would still be able to destroy the undead army. In the previous battle, they had lost because they had been too confident and had not been united. Most of them were ordinary people who had never seen such battles before, so it was impossible for them to work together. Zhao Fu wanted the undead disaster to grow to a point where no one could stop it. Right now, Zhao Fu felt that it was only a small matter. There were roughly 2,000 regions in the northern side of the Midland continent, and after 1.5 months, the undead army had only reached the 8th region. At this rate, how long would it take for them to ravage the entire northern side? And how long would it take for them to ravage all of China? And how long would it take for them to ravage the entire world? At such a slow rate, it was likely that the Heaven Awakened world would devour the real world before they finished ravaging all of China. The system would not allow this legacy land to develop endlessly. As such, Zhao Fu wanted to speed up the process and reduce unnecessary resistance. When the undead disaster reached a point where it could destroy the heavens and earth, it would not be too late to deal with them. Instead, it would be much easier. Zhao Fu went on stage and said a few words, indicating that Qin was willing to reconcile, causing the countless factions' representatives to let out a sigh of relief. He also said that peace was the most beautiful thing, and that Chinese people should not fight Chinese people, and that all of China should be united. Zhao Fu casually listened to these words and did not pay them much mind. Some people even praised Zhao Fu for his contributions to China's pacifism, making Zhao Fu unable to help but laugh. Now, with the abundance of materials, life was getting better and better, and there were more and more saints. Of course, Qin's ultimate goal was also peace. But now, after the war, there are many powerful figures. In the future, the entire human race will face a catastrophe. Can there be peace? Zhao Fu casually replied with a few words. Because he was worried about these forces, Zhao Fu also put forward some conditions. He couldn't let them go against Qin just because they wanted to, so he asked them to make some compensation. In truth, Zhao Fu had originally wanted to ask each faction to provide a hostage. But after thinking about it, if there really was a huge profit to be made, then a direct disciple wouldn't count for anything. It would be better to just directly ask for some benefits. As for compensation, all the major forces were willing to accept it. What they wanted the most right now was to resolve this matter peacefully. The compensation would be given in the Heaven Awakened world and not in the real world. Only the Ying family could take care of the real world, but if anything happened, the Ying family would be hated by all of the factions. Now, Zhao Fu didn't want the Ying family to be destroyed. On one hand, the Ying family's performance was quite good, and, on the other hand, they would be of great help in the real world. As such, Zhao Fu had created the impression that the Ying family wasn't much to Qin's legatee, making it unnecessary for it to attract so much hatred. The negotiations concluded very quickly, and everyone left. Only 6 factions people remained. Of course, they had important people in Zhao Fu's hands, and they were the 6 people Zhao Fu had imprisoned. A resolute-looking young man walked over. He was most likely a member of the government, and he gave off the aura of a soldier. I wonder if Qin can release my little brother? The others also asked, asking Qin to release the hostages. Zhao Fu smiled and immediately refused, saying, "They're doing very well, and they have food and water in Qin City. You don't have to worry about anything." A rough-looking, white-bearded elder unhappily yelled, "No, you must release the Xingtian clan's people." Zhao Fu frowned. Since they didn't want to listen to him, there was no need for Zhao Fu to say anything else. His voice became cold as he said, I won't release them. As the prize for opposing Qin, if you can maintain good relations with Qin, Qin can consider releasing them. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the white-bearded elder felt quite angry. He clenched his fists and prepared to attack Zhao Fu, but in consideration of the entire ancient clans, he endured it and angrily turned and left. Seeing this, the others had no choice but to leave as well. However, there was one person who stayed, an extremely beautiful woman, Su Yuyin. Su Yuyin looked at Zhao Fu with a complicated expression. Back at the banquet, she had some impression of Zhao Fu, mainly because he had been brought in by Wu Qingyang. The Wu family had always had good taste in men, so she was surrounded by all sorts of men. Most importantly, all of them had great potential. Su Yuyin had started to investigate Zhao Fu, and after finding out that he was just an unremarkable minor figure, she hadn't paid much attention to him. However, she had never thought that such an unremarkable minor figure would suddenly become the acting leader of the Ying family and the representative of Qin's legatee, making countless factions, large and small, respect him. She had heard that he also had King's fate, but normally, it was impossible for two people with King's fates to get along. It was like how a mountain could not contain two tigers. She had never expected that Imperial Prince Qin would treat Zhao Fu so well and hand over all of his power to him. No matter how Su Yuyin thought about it, she couldn't figure it out. However, with Prince Qin's extraordinary way of thinking, ordinary people wouldn't be able to figure it out. As Qin City continued to expand, perhaps Zhao Fu would also become very important. Thinking of this, Su Yuyin smiled. Hello, Mr. Zhao. Zhao Fu also knew this Su Yuyin. She was a super popular celebrity. Before Zhao Fu was a university student, he already knew of her. He had seen her in person at the last banquet, but the two of them didn't have any interaction at that time. What's the matter? Zhao Fu gave a gentle smile and nodded before asking. What is it? This wasn't because Zhao Fu treated women well. If others treated Zhao Fu with respect, then Zhao Fu would treat them with respect as well. I'm from Flower Moon. Can you let my 14th sister go? Su Yuyin smiled and didn't hide anything as she spoke her purpose. Chapter 464. Even though he knew that Su Yuyin was a member of Flower Moon, Zhao Fu still wouldn't let her go. After all, Miao Qianming had already been conferred the title of Imperial Concubine and provided Phoenix Qi for the Emperor Phoenix statue. She was much more useful than anyone else, so Zhao Fu refused, saying, I'm sorry, Miss Su, I can't agree to this. Su Yuyin wasn't surprised, and she still smiled as she said, Flower Moon can help Qin achieve greatness. With Flower Moon's support, Qin's life will be much more convenient. This made Zhao Fu feel quite tempted. With the massive support of Flower Moon, Qin wouldn't lack any resources or information, which would make things much more convenient for him and allow him to develop more quickly. However, Zhao Fu still refused. On one hand, Miao Qianming's Phoenix Qi was quite important, and on the other hand, Zhao Fu didn't want any factions to infiltrate Qin. In the future, when Qin was truly powerful, he would consider cooperating with them. Su Yuyin felt quite surprised. There was no reason for Zhao Fu to refuse. It was evident that Qin would receive great benefits if he cooperated with Flower Moon. Why would he refuse? It was just releasing a hostage. It was quite simple. In the face of massive benefits, it was nothing. Can you tell me why? Su Yuyin asked as she looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes. Zhao Fu lightly laughed. How could he tell her? He directly said, no matter what, it's impossible for her to be released. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving now. Hearing this, Su Yuyin felt quite surprised. From Zhao Fu's tone, it seemed that 14th sister had become very important to Qin. Could it be that Emperor Qin really likes beauties and is interested in 14th sister? Is that why he can't release her? Thinking about how 14th sister has to be humiliated every day, Su Yuyin thought about it and made a decision. She said to Zhao Fu, Mr. Zhao, I can exchange someone for you. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and asked, who is it? Su Yiyan answered seriously, "He is Li Wu." Upon hearing this name, Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. Back when Zhao Fu had heard that Li Wu had been rescued, he hadn't known who it had been. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely Su Yiyan who had sent people to rescue him. However, Zhao Fu had never placed Li Wu in his eyes, so he hadn't paid much attention to him. "Miss Su, do you think that I would trade such an insignificant person with an important member of Flower Moon?" That Li Wu Qin didn't take it seriously at all. "Well, Miss Su, I have something to do, so I have to leave now." After saying that, Zhao Fu didn't want to continue and led his people to the side. Su Yiyan watched as Zhao Fu left under the protection of countless bodyguards. There was nothing she could do. She could only sigh and leave. Li Wu was currently within a villa. Back when Su Yiyan had found out that the Ying family wanted to kill Li Wu, she had felt that Li Wu had some ability. As such, she decided to nurture him and make him one of her chess pieces. Li Wu felt quite embarrassed after being saved by Su Yiyan. His noble and luxurious Emperor Qin's clothes had been cruelly ripped off, and now he was nothing but a lowly, ordinary person. He didn't even know how to face Su Yiyan. However, Su Yiyan didn't say anything because she knew that he was fake. She had encouraged him and helped him regain his confidence. This made Li Wu feel quite grateful, and he just wanted to develop his faction and marry Su Yiyan. However, what he didn't know was that Su Yiyan had almost sold him out. Back in the Heaven Awakened world, Zhao Fu had already arrived at the 8th region. He stood in the sky and looked down at the boundless ocean of bones. He gave the order for the ocean of bones to split into 4 groups, and the 10 disaster cavalrymen were split into 4 groups to act as the core of the ocean of bones. The 10 disaster cavalrymen rode on their skeleton horses and drew their black swords, sending out formless ripples that caused the ocean of bones to split into 4 groups and advance in different directions. Now that Zhao Fu had split the ocean of bones into 4 groups, he didn't have to worry about them gathering players to attack the ocean of bones. This was because of the Qin's decree and the countless factions' demand for peace. So even if there were people with ill intentions, they wouldn't be able to gather so many people. Now that the ocean of bones had split into 4 groups, even though they couldn't use undead disaster anymore, the skeleton mages could continuously summon skeletons, causing the ocean of bones to continuously grow. Once it reached a certain size, the 10 disaster cavalrymen would be able to create 10 groups of undead skeletons that would attack from different directions. This way, the expansion of the ocean of bones would be much faster. The first group of skeletons had already entered the 1st region, and the second group had already entered the 2nd region. Just as the 3rd group was about to enter the 3rd region, something unexpected happened. A system announcement sounded out, and everyone in the northern region received this system announcement, making them feel quite surprised. System announcement. A major regional event has occurred, and the undead calamity has wreaked havoc. The entire northern side has been enveloped by the will of death, and anyone who dies will be turned into undead within 3 days. Killing undead will give you some rewards, and the northern region's paths have been temporarily opened. During this time, everyone can freely travel to any region. This caused Zhao Fu's expression to fall. Most importantly, the northern region's paths have been temporarily opened, meaning that the northern region's players could freely travel between regions. This meant that Qin's greatest advantage was gone. Before, Qin had been able to fight against all of China because the paths between regions had not been opened. As such, they were unable to gather their strength, and Qin could destroy them one by one. They were unable to resist, so they were afraid of Qin, which was why they had chosen to compromise. Otherwise, why would they submit to him? However, this advantage was gone, and the northern region's players could freely travel between regions. They could gather all of their strength, and once the northern region's factions allied together to deal with Qin, Qin would definitely lose. With Qin's current strength, how could he stop them? There were more than 300 million players in the northern region, and there were countless villages that the players had developed. How could Qin win? Even with the undead disaster's current scale, it was impossible for him to stop them. This system announcement was simply tricking Qin, causing Qin, who originally had the absolute advantage, to be at a disadvantage, and he might even be destroyed. Moreover, there were rewards for killing undead. Wasn't this just trying to attract others to oppose Great Qin? This was simply too much. Even now, Zhao Fu still didn't understand what was going on and why such a major incident had occurred. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu felt that it was because his undead disaster had killed too many people and was too destructive, so the system had to suppress it. Chapter 465. Ha ha ha. After receiving this system announcement, Su Yin couldn't help but laugh. Even the heavens are helping me. Because of this system announcement, all of the factions that had been negotiating with Great Qin stopped what they were doing and started to discuss. The other factions all felt incredibly excited. Wasn't this the same as the heavens wanting to destroy Qin? If they could mobilize all of the northern side's factions, how could Qin stop them? They would definitely lose. No dynasty has any hope of winning against so many factions. Qin had been incredibly domineering and arrogant, and he had killed countless people. Now, he was going to receive his retribution. The countless ordinary people who had been suppressed by Great Qin felt indescribably happy. They were finally able to vent their frustrations, and all of their suppressed anger exploded out. The fear that Great Qin had caused also disappeared as a system announcement appeared. The implementation of Qin's writs and the Holy Daughter writs also stopped because of the changes in the northern side. Now, the entire world attention was once again focused on the northern side, waiting to see how the situation in the northern side would develop. Su Yin raised the flag of the anti-Qin rebellion and started to incite rebellion with the slogan, "Destroying Qin by the heavens." Qin will definitely lose this time. Even the system has prepared an opportunity for us to destroy Qin. Are we going to miss this great opportunity? Do you want to endure its atrocities forever? Do you want to kneel at its feet? Do you want to live in its shadows in fear forever? Don't hesitate anymore. Fight for a better future. Those who can't stand Qin's brutality, fight. Qin will definitely be destroyed this time. And even if Qin has the undead disaster, he won't be able to stop so many of us. Now that the northern side's regions have been opened up, countless players could gather together. And as their power gathered, a terrifying wave of players was formed. The factions that had reached an agreement with Great Qin didn't hesitate to tear off all pretenses and join the resistance against Great Qin. Before, just 5 regions had been enough to suppress the undead disaster. And now that there were 2,000 of them, how could Great Qin win? Compared to the humiliating peace, these factions wanted to destroy Qin more. Once Qin was destroyed, there would no longer be any faction that could threaten them in the northern side. Destroying Qin by the heavens. Destroying Qin by the heavens. Destroying Qin by the heavens. Countless cheers sounded out in the system main cities, and countless people were incredibly excited. Wherever there was oppression, there would be resistance. Before, Qin's Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs had caused countless people to complain, and it was only because of the fear of the undead disaster that they had submitted. However, it was different now. They could gather the power of all the factions in the north. With such a huge force, not to mention the Qin state, even the 5 great dynasties would be destroyed. In an instant, their surging momentum completely suppressed the Qin state. On Qin's side, there was dead silence. This time, Zhao Fu had completely miscalculated. The 2 orders issued by Qin had aroused the anger of most people. There are definitely many people who wanted to kill Qin. In fact, they forced Qin to issue the Order of the Qin clan and the Order of the Holy Virgin. If they hadn't participated in it, Zhao Fu wouldn't have issued these 2 orders. Zhao Fu wanted to use undead disaster and reality fruit to cause widespread panic and force them to submit. This would naturally enrage them. So not only would Qin have to face countless factions, but he would also have to face countless players. There was nothing wrong with the Qin medallion and the Holy Daughter medallion. However, because of this incident, the 2 medallions had attracted so much hatred. This was something that Zhao Fu had never expected. The hall was deathly silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Everyone's face was solemn. Wei Liao walked out and cupped his hands as he said in a serious tone, "Your Majesty, this is not a small matter. I think we should be ready to move Qin City at any time. There are countless citizens there. With such a huge force, Qin City will not be able to resist it." Wang Jian also stood up and said, "This subordinate agrees with Wei Liao's thoughts. As long as Qin's foundation is not destroyed, there is still a chance for him to make a comeback." Bai Qi deeply frowned, and his expression became serious. With Qin City's strength, it was impossible for them to resist the northern side's forces. In the face of absolute power, all schemes were useless. Even though Bai Qi didn't want to admit it, Qin City was going to lose this time. Zhao Fu sat on the throne, feeling a headache coming on, and he sighed as he said, "Is there really no way to stop the northern side's forces?" The hall fell silent, and no one could think of a way to defend against hundreds of millions of players. Suddenly, Li Si walked out and cupped his hands as he said, "Your Majesty, why don't Qin City negotiate with them? There's no other way right now." "Your Majesty, if there's a negotiation, I'm willing to go. This is something I'm good at." Shanyang also stepped out and bowed as he cupped his hands. "All right, you can all leave," Zhao Fu said as he rubbed his head. Facing such a great disaster, the general's expressions were quite grim, and they obeyed and left the hall. In the end, only Zhao Fu was left, silently thinking to himself, "Do you guys think we should get involved? Qin's actions are so barbaric and domineering, so I feel that we should support him in destroying Qin City. After all, Qin City will definitely lose this time." A square-faced, middle-aged man sat at a table and said to the other important members of the government. The others nodded in agreement, as it was possible that the heavens would truly destroy Qin City this time. "What about old Zhou's son? If we make a move, his son will definitely die," a skinny middle-aged man suddenly said. The square-faced, middle-aged man coldly harumphed. In the face of such a major event, what's the big deal about one person dying? Old Zhou's son will be sacrificing his life for the country. Hearing his words, no one said anything else. A white-haired elder from the ancient clan said, "I never thought that the situation would change so quickly. This system announcement was too unexpected, and Qin City might not be able to escape. What should we do? We don't need to do anything. Qin City is so arrogant, and he deserves it. Moreover, even we can't stop such a massive northern faction." The white-haired elder, who was the leader of the Xingtian clan, replied. The other elders thought about it and realized that this was not something that they could interfere with, so they could only sigh and say, "Qin City was originally the dynasty with the most potential in China, but it's going to end up like this." The women in the Flower Moon were also discussing, and a quiet woman said, "Let's not do anything. It doesn't matter if we participate or not. After all, Qin City will definitely lose. If we don't participate, 14th Sister will probably be able to survive." The other women also nodded in understanding. The mature woman on the top also made the decision not to participate. Su Yuyin had never thought that the situation would change so quickly, and that the arrogant Qin City would end up like this. Chapter 466. After the lesson from last time, the northern side's factions did not dare to be careless at all. Even though they had an absolute advantage in numbers, they still made all sorts of preparations. After all, they knew that they were facing Qin. With how terrifying Qin was, perhaps he really did have some terrifying trump cards. As such, they had to make ample preparations to destroy Qin. If they could destroy Qin, everything would be worth it. They would be able to get rid of the greatest threat in the Heaven Awakened world, and they would have even more opportunities in the future. Moreover, if they could take down Qin, the benefits would be immense. Just the 4 system main cities that Qin had obtained would be enough to make countless dynasty legatees envious, and there might even be other good things. For example, the core item that Qin had used to create the undead disaster, as well as the item that could bring people from the real world into the Heaven Awakened world. For Qin to be at the top of the pyramid and be feared by countless dynasty legatees, it definitely had countless precious treasures. This was enough to make them go crazy. Even if they only obtained one, it would be incredibly beneficial to them. It was evident just how tempting Qin was to them. In order to obtain enough things to deal with the undead, they all sought help from the Buddhist sect, the Taoist sect, and the Vatican's branch in China. Many people in China believe in God, so the Vatican also had a branch in China, and it was quite powerful. As the northern side's factions made all sorts of preparations, Zhao Fu, who was sitting alone in the hall, finally made his decision. His eyes gave off a dense killing intent, as he said, "Since they're afraid that I'll kill too many people and do such a thing, if Qin dies, I'll drag the entire heaven-awakened world down with me. Li Si, Shanyang, you two come in." Zhao Fu made his decision and called out to Li Si and Shanyang, who were waiting outside. Li Si and Shanyang walked in, thinking that Zhao Fu had decided to negotiate. Otherwise, Qin really wouldn't have the power to stop them. The two of them asked simultaneously, "Your Majesty, what orders do you have?" Zhao Fu said, "Check how much food Qin has. It's best to have enough food to feed all of Qin for 5 years. Check other materials as well. If you don't have enough, you can buy more. Also, buy all the talismans that could defend against ghosts from a market. This matter concerns the survival of Qin, so don't be stingy and buy them in large quantities. Then, everyone in Qin City should stop all work and build an underground city under Qin City as soon as possible. It should be big enough to accommodate everyone in Qin City." After hearing Zhao Fu's orders, Li Si and Wang Chong were stunned. They didn't understand why Zhao Fu didn't send them to negotiate for peace, but to prepare for these things that they didn't understand. However, since it was Zhao Fu's orders, they would carry them out seriously. "Yes, Your Highness." The two of them obeyed and quickly turned to leave. Zhao Fu summoned the black and white impermanences again and brought them to the 8th region to begin his plan. According to the original plan, the 4 groups of undead continued to invade 4 regions. There were very few players in these 4 regions, as most of them had died in the previous battle. Then, they had been massacred by Qin City, so it wasn't easy for them to replenish their numbers. After invading these 4 regions, the system announcement stated that the will of death had covered the entire northern side. After dying for 3 days, corpses would become undead, which would be of great help to the undead disaster. With the will of death, the skeleton's power would also increase. Moreover, after dying for 3 days, corpses would become undead. This meant that all creatures that had died recently would become undead, which would greatly increase the undead ocean of bones. However, the undead that these creatures had become didn't have a disaster attribute, so they were relatively weak. Moreover, they weren't summoned by the disaster cavalrymen, so they couldn't be guided. However, because of the undead's nature, they would follow the undead. After entering the 4 regions, even though the undead had been split into 4 groups, their auras weren't weak at all, and they were just as terrifying. Rumble, the sea of white bones, was like a mountain flood, giving off terrifying sounds. It was like a real mountain flood, destroying everything in its path. The immense death aura also arrived, causing the ground to die and the plants to wither, losing all life. Under this terrifying aura, tens of thousands of birds flew away in fear and beasts madly ran away. A beast tide was formed, and sensing the auras of living creatures, the countless skeletons became excited. They gave off evil and eerie laughter as they rushed at these creatures. A massacre once again unfolded. Following this, the undead ocean of bones continued to massacre, but the scale of the massacre didn't increase at all. After all, almost all of the skeleton mages were left in the 8th region. In order to make sure that all of them stayed, the disaster cavalrymen gave the skeleton mages the number of skeletons that they could lead. Before, the disaster cavalrymen could lead 300 skeletons, and now that they were Lord-class skeletons, they could lead 3,000 skeletons each. Because these 30,000 skeleton mages were completely controlled, they weren't like the other skeletons, and they could directly listen to Zhao Fu's orders. On one side, the undead ocean of bones madly slaughtered, while on the other side, countless skeleton mages stood by Zhao Fu's side. Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on the ground and cut his wrist, allowing his blood to continuously drip onto the ground. The black and white impermanences performed hand seals, causing their hands to flash with black and white lights as they cast various curses. The Northern Side's factions had successfully obtained the support of the Taoists, Buddhist sects, and Christian churches. The Taoists could provide a large number of talismans, the Buddhist sects could give Buddha's light, and the Christian church could provide holy water. They could also make special equipment that dealt great damage to the undead. The school of Taoism, the Buddhist sect, and the Vatican were all righteous factions, and they were quite disgusted by Great Qin's undead disaster, as it had caused too many creatures to die. The school of Taoism was fine, as they did not like killing, but how could the merciful Buddhist sect and the Vatican, which were both righteous and righteous, tolerate Great Qin's slaughtering? During the last battle, they had wanted to help the Northern Side's faction stop Qin's undead disaster, but because of the various regions, they had been unable to do so. However, things were different now. All of China's Northern Side's paths had been opened, and they could freely go to any system main city. As such, they could naturally help the Northern Side's factions. With their full support, the Northern Side's power to resist the undead greatly increased, making them even more confident. It wasn't just the Taoists, Buddhist sects, and Christian churches that supported them. There were many other factions as well. For example, the School of Military sent many of their disciples to lead the scattered factions and to guide them in this battle. Even though the School of Confucianism didn't specialize in dealing with ghost-type creatures, they sent many things that could weaken the undead. Chapter 467. At the same time, in order to prevent the same thing from happening again, where they would run away as soon as they encountered the undead, they began to use all sorts of methods to strengthen their cohesiveness and combat awareness. For example, they exaggerated their kindness, saying that they were on the side of justice, and that they were enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Even the heavens supported them in destroying Qin City and released Qin City's evils. They poured all kinds of dirty water on Qin City, making Qin City into a heinous faction. This was very effective because the undead disaster and the Holy Maiden Order had attracted a lot of hatred for Qin City. With hatred, there would be fighting spirit. Another method was to increase their confidence and make them believe that they would definitely win, so they wouldn't be afraid. They also told them about the support from all sides, making them feel that the whole world was helping them. All sorts of methods were quite effective. This time, everyone's battle strength and cohesiveness were definitely many times greater than last time. This would be a decisive factor, because if they were not united and did not have the will to fight, they would definitely lose. Just as the Northern Side's factions were preparing fervently, someone suddenly said, "Now that all of the Northern Side's factions have gathered together, we have a massive advantage. If we attack Vietnam or Thailand, no one will be able to stop us. Perhaps we can directly destroy them. Even if we can't destroy them, with our large numbers, we will be able to heavily injure them, making them unable to resist China." However, no one paid attention to this. Right now, they only wanted to destroy Qin City, and they didn't have the mood to fight other countries. As long as they could destroy Qin City, nothing else mattered. On Zhao Fu's side, he spent most of his time sitting cross-legged on the ground. From time to time, he would cut his wrist and let his blood drip onto the ground. At a speed visible to the naked eye, Zhao Fu's body became thinner and weaker, and his face became incredibly pale. Qin City was also working hard, continuously digging soil. He listened to Zhao Fu's orders and planned to build an underground city under Qin City. The 4 waves of skeletons had already ravaged 4 regions, and Zhao Fu gathered them again to invade another region. After a round of slaughter, they returned to the 8th region. The northern factions and Qin City's factions were all nervously preparing, and the whole world's eyes were on them. They had never relaxed because they could feel the tense atmosphere spreading in the north of China. Many people weren't optimistic about Qin's chances in the upcoming battle because Qin had to face too many people. It was basically impossible for him to win. Of course, they were quite happy to see this, as Great Qin's legatee was a great threat to them. A large part of the reason they feared China was because they feared Great Qin. After all, Great Qin was simply too dazzling, making them seem incredibly weak. Facing such a great enemy in the future, it would be best if their own people were killed right now. That way, they could also heave a sigh of relief. Another 3 days later, the northern forces that had been preparing for a long time officially launched their attack. A total of 170 million players had gathered for this campaign. With such a large number of players, it would be enough to slay a god. From this, it could be seen just how terrifying it was to have so many players gathered. At a glance, it was a sea of people, and the aura they gave off wasn't any weaker than the Sea of Bones. In fact, it seemed that the Sea of People was even larger than the Sea of Bones. Su Yin personally led the troops for this campaign, and he had planned to directly go to the Forest of Horrors and destroy Qin City in one fell swoop. However, the 8th region was right in the middle of the road, and the teleportation channels around it couldn't be used. It was as if they were blocked by some sort of power, and if they went around it, they would be easily attacked by the undead army. As such, it would be better to fight to the death with Qin City in the 8th region. Right now, the only thing that Qin City could resist was the undead disaster. If they destroyed the undead disaster, Qin City would be powerless to retaliate, and it would be incredibly easy to go to the Forest of Horrors to kill Qin City. After making this decision, they led the massive player army to the 8th region. After returning to the 8th region, they thought about how they had suffered a crushing defeat here last time, and they were determined to make Qin City pay them back tenfold. Because the 8th region had been occupied by the undead army for a long time, there wasn't a single trace of life here. All of the plants had withered and rotted, and the ground was gray and gave off traces of deathly aura. The sky was covered by gray clouds, and not a single ray of light could pass through. The surroundings were incredibly dark, and there was a cold and eerie aura everywhere, making it seem like a ghost realm. Because the Sea of People and the Sea of Bones were both massive, they quickly met in the 8th region. On one side, there was a massive wave of people giving off a world-shaking aura. Their voices gathered together sounded like wild thunder, and as they stepped on the ground, the entire ground seemed to tremble. In front of them, everything seemed incredibly fragile. On the other side was a boundless sea of bones that similarly emitted an overflowing aura of death that shook the 9 heavens, causing all creatures to feel fear. Black soul flames continuously flickered within their skulls. Their eye sockets collectively looked at the countless people in front of them and let out cruel and eerie laughter. Boom! Chapter 468. Boom! Another explosion sounded out as a Buddha, giving off boundless light, appeared in the sky, giving off a boundless, benevolent, and dignified aura. Countless people's bodies gave off rays of Buddhist light, blocking the gray, deathly aura around them. Everyone felt their bodies warm up and did not feel any coldness. A holy and beautiful woman led a group of people dressed in white robes to the center of the ocean of players and drew a cross in front of her chest. The other church members did the same, and they all gave off holy and solemn white light. Boom! A massive explosion once again sounded out as an angel giving off large amounts of white light slowly descended from the sky. Within the range of the white light, countless people felt incredibly comfortable, and they were also given a holy light power. This power was incredibly harmful to undead. At the same time, countless players used the talismans that they had been given, obtaining all sorts of buffs. The player army, which had all sorts of buffs, did not show any weakness at all, and they gave off an ocean-like aura as countless people roared and rushed towards the incoming ocean of black bones. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. One was a sea of black bones, while the other was a sea of colorful people. The two seas fiercely collided, as if two worlds were colliding. The sound was incomparably terrifying. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of countless weapons clashing could be heard as blood and bones flew everywhere. The skeletons showed no fear at all and savagely slaughtered the players. The players showed no fear and with the buffs from the various buffs, they continuously killed the skeletons. Corpses and skeletons continuously littered the ground, and the collision between the two massive waves did not weaken at all. The countless skeletons gave off an aura that could exterminate all creatures as they ferociously slaughtered the countless humans. The countless humans were filled with battle intent and continuously defended against the skeletons. The humans and skeletons continuously died, and more corpses and bones piled up under their feet. The battle was incredibly intense, and the skeletons cruelly slaughtered the humans while the humans did their best to kill the skeletons. Not a single one of them took a single step back, and they were like two massive waves that gave off unstoppable power as they ferociously charged at each other. Heaven's destruction sheen. One of the soldiers from a school of military roared as he swung the large saber in his hand and charged towards the countless skeletons. The others also followed suit, shouting Heaven's destroyer sheen. All of a sudden, the morale of humans rose, and countless people were filled with resentment. They wanted to return the oppression that Sheen had inflicted on them tenfold, and they swore to destroy Sheen to vent their anger. Now that the heavens had given them this opportunity, and with the support of the entire Huaxia, they believed that they would definitely be able to defeat Sheen. Following this, the humans continuously rushed forwards, and the boundless sea of bones started to lose out. Even though there were countless skeletons madly rushing forwards, their stamina was not enough, and they were gradually pushed back by the massive sea of humans. Su Yin and the other faction's leaders all had smiles on their faces. Even the terrifying spectral disaster was showing signs of defeat in front of them. This made them feel incredibly proud, and they were even more confident that they would be able to destroy Qin. Under the massive black magic formation in the sky, Zhao Fu stood in the air, his black cloak fluttering in the wind. Zhao Fu's current state was quite strange. His body had completely lost its color and had become a gray-white color. There was not a single bit of flesh or blood on his body, and it was as if he was just a layer of dried skin covering his bones. His sunken eyes were completely blood-red, and they gave off a ferocious aura. Boom! Zhao Fu pointed with his finger, and the disaster cavalrymen raised their black swords and started to guide the skeleton cavalrymen. In just an instant, hundreds of thousands of skeleton cavalrymen gathered together and charged towards the sea of humans. The aura of the hundreds of thousands of skeleton cavalrymen was incredibly terrifying, shaking the entire battlefield. It was an unstoppable force that could break through anything. Facing this charge, the countless humans instinctively felt a trace of fear. Seeing this, Su Yin still had a confident smile on his face as he said, "Let's use that one." Everyone else looked quite relaxed and smiled as they nodded. They then passed down orders, and the 200,000 or so players knocked their bows and shot out arrows. After these arrows shot out, they turned into rays of white light that shot into the skeleton cavalrymen. Countless rays of blinding white light flashed as shocking waves of holy light energy exploded out. Under the white light, the countless skeleton cavalrymen howled as a large amount of gray aura rose up from their bodies, and their bodies collapsed. It was the same for the skeleton horses. In just an instant, the unstoppable skeleton cavalrymen were completely annihilated, leaving behind only a pile of bones. No one knew what they had used for those arrows to be so powerful. In actuality, each of the arrows had a holy light crystal tied to them. These holy light crystals contained incredibly powerful holy light energy, and they could deal massive damage to undead and demons. Each crystal cost 20 gold coins, so the 200,000 or so arrows were worth roughly 4 million gold coins. It could be seen that the Northern Side's factions had paid a great price to destroy Qin City. However, they also had the support of countless other factions, or else they would have felt a great heartache. After all, 4 million gold coins were equivalent to 400 million copper coins, and 400 million copper coins were equivalent to $4 billion in the real world. After shooting out a wave of holy light crystals, the 200,000 archers took out an arrow with a holy light crystal tied to it and shot it towards the boundless ocean of bones. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions sounded out as countless rays of blinding white light exploded out. The skeletons howled as they died and turned into piles of bones. Following this, the 200,000 archers took out an arrow with a holy light crystal tied to it and shot it towards the boundless ocean of bones. Countless rays of white light flashed, and the skeletons howled as they died. The massive ocean of people used the holy light crystal's power to ferociously attack the skeletons, and the entire skeleton army started to collapse. Even though the skeletons fearlessly continued to charge up, they were unable to stop the massive ocean of people, and the skeleton army's size continuously decreased. In the end, there were less than a few million skeletons left, announcing the skeleton army's defeat. Zhao Fu could only sigh and say, "In the end, Qin still lost." Su Yin and the Northern Side's factions loudly laughed. Now, the outcome was already set in stone. Qin had lost and was unable to resist at all. The countless players felt incredibly delighted. They had endured Qin's brutality and oppression, and now that they had vented their anger, they were naturally in a good mood. One of the leaders of the Northern Side's factions loudly laughed as he yelled at Zhao Fu, "Emperor Qin, you've already lost this time. You've already lost this time, and you deserve it for being so barbaric and domineering, looking down on our Northern Side's factions. Today, I'll definitely destroy Great Qin. Even if you kneel down and beg for peace, it'll be useless." Su Yin smiled and looked at Zhao Fu in the distance, but he didn't say anything. After all, he had to destroy Qin and kill Qin's emperor. Everyone else looked at Zhao Fu with mockery in their eyes. The infamous Emperor Qin was about to become nothing. Chapter 469. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out in all directions, and it was as if the entire Heaven-awakened world had heard it, causing everyone to look towards the north. King Arthur's legatee, the Roman Empire's legatee, the Pharaoh Kingdom's legatee, Great Xia's legatee, Great Shang's legatee, the School of Taoism's sect master, the School of Yin-Yang's sect master, the Buddhist sect's pope, indigenous sorcerers, countless people sensed something and felt as if a calamity was about to descend. Their expressions fell as they hurriedly yelled, "Everyone, leave the heaven-awakened world." Everyone else did not understand what had happened for their young master to be so panicked. However, they still obeyed and prepared to leave the heaven-awakened world. System announcement. Due to the heaven and earth abnormal changes, you cannot leave the heaven-awakened world. System announcement. Due to the heaven and earth abnormal changes, you cannot leave the heaven-awakened world. System announcement. Due to the heaven and earth abnormal changes, you cannot leave the heaven-awakened world. Notifications of being unable to exit rang out one after another, because it was already too late. On the horizon, a massive blood-red star giving off a boundlessly terrifying aura slowly descended. A devilish, evil, murderous, and calamitous blood-red light gradually shined out from the blood-red star. The sky seemed to be dyed blood-red, and the blood-red light continuously spread out. The blue sky was gradually dyed red, and soon, the entire heaven-awakened world was dyed blood-red. Some ordinary people did not know what was going on, and they curiously looked up at the blood-red sky, wondering what was going on. Within the 8th region, countless people stared at the blood-red star in shock, feeling a bad premonition. Su Yin also felt that the situation was far from good, and he felt a wave of terror in his heart. However, the truly terrifying thing had only just begun. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of massive chains rang out, and because the surroundings were completely silent, the sounds of the chains were incredibly loud. Zhao Fu raised his wrinkled arm and shot out 6 chains, which shot into the ground like bolts of lightning. The ground instantly cracked as a soul-freezing coldness burst forth from the ground, causing countless people's hearts to feel a chill, as if they had fallen into an icy cavern. The ground began to tremble violently. Gigantic, demonic hands that were hundreds of meters long stretched out from the ground and pressed down forcefully on the ground. A huge crater appeared on the ground. Following this, their terrifying bodies crawled out of the ground with earth-shaking noises. 6 terrifying and suffocating auras spread out. Countless people felt like they were small boats in the ocean, powerlessly swaying. Their bodies trembled nonstop, and fear came from their souls. The Buddhist light and holy light that soothed their souls were actually ineffective. 6 enormous demon god statues crawled out from the ground and appeared in front of everyone. These 6 demon images were 1,000 meters tall, and they all had chains around their necks. Their bodies gave off heaven-toppling demonic flames, giving off a heaven-like pressure. In front of them, everything else seemed incredibly weak and small. Apart from the first Azura demon statue that wielded a great spear and wore battle armor, there were 5 other different Azura demon statues. Hell Dao demon image. It looked like a demon and had a well-developed body. Its skin was black, and it was completely naked. Tongues of flames occasionally burned on its body and gave off a dense smell of sulfur. It had a demon's head and 2 sharp black horns. It held an iron trident in its hand. Hungry Ghost Dao demon image. It looked like a weak human and did not have any flesh on its body. Its limbs were very long and thin, and it had a large round stomach. It had gray skin and an ugly face. Its ears were somewhat sharp, and its gray eyes were filled with savagery. There was a piece of cloth wrapped around its waist, covering its lower body, and it held a large bone cleaver. Human Dao demon image. It looked like a human and had a handsome face and a well-built body. It wore white clothes and had a blood-red sword at its waist. Its eyes were also blood-red and gave off a dense killing intent. Heaven Dao demon image. It looked like a demon and had a pair of pure black eyes, a mouth full of fangs, a pair of wide wings, and a tail. It wore black armor and held a large halberd. Animal Dao demon image. It was also humanoid and had a body of powerful muscles. Its body was quite tall and sturdy, and it had grayish-white skin. It had 3 heads. One was a chicken head, one was a duck head, and one was a pig head. There was a piece of beast skin wrapped around its waist, and it seemed to have great physical strength. The auras that the 6 paths demon images gave off were abnormally terrifying, and each of them had been summoned by Zhao Fu at the cost of tens of millions of lives. This was why the undead disaster had not increased in scale, even though it had ravaged the 5 regions, as Zhao Fu had used all of his corpses on it. After being summoned, these demon images could not be controlled. Just like the Azura demon image, they were like wild beasts that tried to destroy everything. Zhao Fu could only use his blood to strengthen his control over the demon images and use the King's Crown's chains as support to finally control the 6 paths demon images. At the same time, this was the reason why Zhao Fu looked like a skeleton. In order to control the 6 paths demon images, Zhao Fu had used up a lot of blood and was in a weakened state, and his life could be in danger at any moment. The Chaos Imperial Star was formed from the fusion of the Chaos Demon Star and the Myrtle Imperial Star, and both of these stars were incredibly powerful. One represented an emperor, while the other represented countless disasters. Now that the 2 stars had fused together, the terrifying power it released was even greater. Back then, when the Chaos Imperial Star had descended, it had created a terrifying scene, and Zhao Fu did not casually summon it. This was because it was simply too powerful, and if Zhao Fu was not careful, he could suffer a backlash. The 6 paths demon images were a type of ultimate power in the underworld, and they could kill gods and destroy Daos. Ordinary people could not control them, which was why they were classified as forbidden techniques. Zhao Fu had used the blood of tens of millions of creatures to summon them, allowing their terrifying power to descend into the human world. Now, the Chaos Imperial Star and the 6 paths demon images had fused together, creating a terrifying power that even Zhao Fu could not estimate. It was definitely a world-destroying power, and as such, the entire Heaven Awakened world fell into a crisis, making it impossible for anyone to leave. the various legatees and sect masters. It was only after sensing this power that their expressions fell, and they had everyone leave the heaven-awakened world. However, it was too late. They looked towards the north seriously, and even though they were far away, they could sense the terrifying ripples coming from the north, making them feel incredibly shocked. This was most likely a major change in the destruction of Great Qin, and this was most likely caused by Qin's legatee. However, this power was simply too monstrous, and it was likely that the destruction of Great Qin would fail. The consequences would be countless corpses, and the entire northern side of China would be heavily injured. If they did not die, they would be crippled. Chapter 470. In the 8th region, countless people looked up in terror at the sky. Under the massive blood-red star, Zhao Fu stood in the air, and the 6 chains on his arms hung down. They were connected to the 6 shocking demon images, and his aura was so terrifying that it seemed to shake the heavens and earth. Everyone was deeply immersed in fear, unable to extricate themselves. Some of the more timid people had already collapsed to the ground in fright and lost control of their bowels. The ocean of bones had killed 70 million or so players, and the ground was covered with corpses and bones. Now, there were only about 100 million players left, and it was a massive ocean of players. Su Yin yelled, "We have so many people while they only have 6. We also have other types of buffs, so don't be afraid. Charge. As long as we kill Qin's legatee, everyone will be greatly rewarded." The leaders of the other factions also yelled. Now was not the time to be afraid, and their only option was to defeat Qin's legatee. Hearing their words, countless people agreed. They still had about 100 million players, and including Qin's legatee, there were only 7 of them. With so many people, they would be able to overwhelm Qin's legatee to death. Suppressing their fear, countless people roared as they charged towards the 6 paths demon images. The massive ocean of players gave off an aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas as they charged towards the 6 paths demon images. Zhao Fu stood in the air, and because of the descent of the Chaos Imperial Star, Zhao Fu's eyes were like a pair of rubies that gave off a bright blood-red light. His eyes were incredibly cold, and they seemed to be filled with killing intent. Facing the ocean of players, the Azura demon image at the center stepped out, causing the ground to tremble. The Azura demon image gripped its great spear and vigorously swung it. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the great spear seemed to tear through space, bringing with it a massive storm. Within 10,000 meters, whether it was people or rocks, everything was crushed by the power, and those outside 10,000 meters were sent flying like sand. This massive storm caused the ocean of players to pause, and its terrifying might instantly cleared out a large portion of the ocean of players, resulting in countless deaths and injuries. The Buddhist sect, Confucian school, and Vatican all used their full strength, wanting to help the others. Their bodies gave off different auras and entered the abnormal signs in the sky. The book that was emitting a green glow became even brighter, and the sage's voice became even louder, giving off a feeling of righteousness. The Buddha light that the Buddha gave off became even more intense, and the sonorous chanting of scriptures sounded as if it wanted to expel all evil and purify the world. It was an angel. It spread its pure white wings and emitted a blinding white light. Everyone felt an emptiness in their hearts as boundless light enveloped them, resisting the invasion of evil. The combined strength of the 3 factions was somewhat effective, and everyone felt their fear lessen. They were no longer as afraid of the 6 paths demon images, and they rushed over even more vigorously. Clang! A cruel smile appeared on the human demon image's face as it drew the blood-red sword at its waist. It gripped the sword with both hands and raised it high into the air. A massive amount of power flowed into it, causing it to give off a brilliant blood-red light. Boom! The sword slashed out, seeming to split the heavens and earth. A massive blood-red sword light flooded forwards like a massive river, leaving no survivors in its wake. A 100,000-meter long and hundreds of meters deep sword gash appeared on the ground. Because the human demon image's main targets were the three factions, not a single person from the Buddhist sect, Confucian school, or Vatican was left alive. Not even a corpse was left behind. Boom! Another massive explosion sounded out as the animal demon image slammed its fist against the ground, causing the ground to crack. A formless energy blade that was tens of thousands of meters long slashed out, causing countless people's bodies to explode and turn into a bloody mist. The hell demon image also attacked and evilly laughed as it held its pitchfork and pointed at the ocean of players. A large amount of black fog rose up and flooded towards the ocean of players, covering hundreds of thousands of people in just an instant. Those within the black fog cried out, and after the black fog passed, they were left with desiccated corpses. The hungry ghost path demon image coldly laughed as it continuously swung the massive bone cleaver in its hand. Grayish-white sword lights slashed out, cleaving players in half. Blood and organs covered the ground, creating a gory scene. In the end, the heaven demon image also attacked. Its expression was cold as it stabbed its halberd towards the sky, resulting in a massive explosion. Swish, 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 swish. The sound of the air being torn could be heard as countless transparent spears descended from the sky like a torrential downpour, nailing people to the ground. In just a few minutes, the Six Paths demon images had killed millions of people. It could be seen just how terrifying they were. Even the boundless ocean of players came to a halt. No one foolishly rushed up to throw away their lives, because even now, none of them had come within 1,000 meters of the Six Paths demon images. Su Yin and the other faction leaders' expressions were incredibly unsightly. Even with so many people, they could not even get close to the Six Paths demon images and could not deal any damage to them at all. This was a battle on a completely different level. Soon, they changed their plans and did not rush up anymore. Instead, they used ranged attacks, and they ordered people to take out bows and arrows to attack the Six Paths demon images. Countless arrows tore through the air and gave off a sharp aura as they shot towards the Six Paths demon images. The rain of arrows was like toothpicks in front of the 1,000-meter-tall Six Paths demon images. Before the arrows could even get close, they were blocked by a formless energy 100 meters away, making it impossible for them to hit the Six Paths demon images. Su Yin hardened his heart and ordered the 200,000 or so archers to take out the last arrow with holy light crystals attached to it and shoot it towards the Six Paths demon images. Holy light crystals dealt great damage to demons and undead, but they were quite expensive. Even with the support of the Northern Side's factions, they could only afford this much. They had already shot out a few waves of holy light crystals, and they only had one wave left, hoping that it would be able to deal some damage to the Six Paths demon images. The arrows turned into rays of white light that gave off a large amount of holy light aura and formed a terrifying wave of holy light energy that shot towards the Six Paths demon images. Seeing the countless rays of white light shooting towards it, the Azura demon image revealed an expression of disgust and raised its great spear before stabbing out. Boom! Another massive explosion sounded out, and the air seemed to explode as a formless energy stabbed out, destroying the countless rays of white light. Moreover, the formless energy did not weaken at all and continued to fall into the hands of the 200,000 or so archers. Bang! An explosion sounded out, causing the ground to tremble and dust to fly into the air, blocking everyone's vision. After the dust settled, a 10,000-meter wide and 100-meter deep crater could be seen in the ground. The crater was filled with corpses, and 80% of the 200,000 or so archers had died. Chapter 471. Countless people looked quite bitter as they looked at Su Yin, waiting to see how he would deal with this situation. However, there was nothing Su Yin could do, as he had used up all of his trump cards. Even though he had destroyed the terrifying undead disaster, he had never thought that Qin would have an even more terrifying trump card. Seeing that Su Yin couldn't do anything, the others started to feel quite worried. They watched as the Six Paths demon images slaughtered people, and if this continued, they would be killed by the Six Paths demon images sooner or later. Rather than being completely annihilated, it was better to choose to escape. The number of people who could survive was better than wasting all of their strength here. If they died, their forces would also fall into a state of emptiness, which would be extremely dangerous. After one person said that they should run, everyone else also said that they should run. In the end, all of the factions chose to run, as they didn't want to waste all of their strength here. This time, they were doomed to fail. The massive ocean of people gradually collapsed, and countless people ran back in fear. In just a short period of time, the Six Paths demon images had killed tens of millions of people. If they didn't run now, they would all die here. Seeing this, Su Yin sighed. They had failed again. However, being able to destroy the undead disaster was already quite good. Now, Su Yin could only give the order for everyone to retreat, and they would think about how to deal with the Six Paths demon images later. The ordinary people received the order and started to quickly run. The massive ocean of people seemed to be flowing backwards, and countless people were retreating. However, at that moment, a hoarse and cold voice sounded out in the sky. I said it before, I want everyone in the heaven-awakened world to die. Standing in the sky, Zhao Fu coldly looked at the countless people running away. He once again slowly raised his hand, and the 6 chains on his arm straightened, causing the Six Paths demon images to stop moving. They obeyed Zhao Fu's order, and they also raised one of their hands and spread out their fingers towards the sky. At that moment, the heavens and earth seemed to fall silent, and not a single sound could be heard. It wasn't just space, even time seemed to stop, and everything seemed to freeze. 6 paths of reincarnation. Open. A loud cry sounded out, and it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. Everyone in the heaven-awakened world felt an intense pain in their ears, and they felt an immense sense of danger. Boom! A massive shock wave rippled out from the 8th region, sweeping through the entire heaven-awakened world. Countless trees were uprooted, and boulders were blown into the sky. Everyone felt this terrifying power, and whether it was their bodies or souls, they froze, feeling as if they had fallen into an abyss. What happened in the north? Countless people thought in horror. He turned back to the 8th region and saw that the 8th region had become a flatland. Whether it was the mountains, the peaks, or even the trees, they had all disappeared. At the center of the shock wave, the ground had completely collapsed, and lava rose up from the ground, covering the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. The blood-red star in the sky was like a blood-red sun, giving off a boundless light. The 6 paths demon images stood in the air, giving off a heaven-toppling aura flame, and they raised one hand towards the sky. As for Su Yan's group of people, they were all crushed by the shock waves, leaving nothing behind. The Qin Exterminating Alliance had been completely annihilated, and not a single person was left alive. However, the Heaven-Awakened World crisis had only just begun. A gash appeared on the 6 paths demon image's hand, and a ball of black blood slowly floated out and rose into the sky. It turned into a black blood-red mist and started to spin, and soon, 6 massive vortexes appeared in the sky. A boundless chilling intent from the underworld instantly covered the entire Heaven-Awakened world, causing all creatures to feel a chill as if a calamity was about to descend. The 6 vortexes gradually became larger, and an eerie and terrifying aura spread throughout the Heaven-Awakened world. Countless beasts were startled and ran in all directions, but none of them felt safe. However, in their terror, they still madly ran. Countless people looked at the 6 vortexes, their faces pale. They understood that a calamity was about to descend, and not only would billions of creatures die, but the entire Heaven-Awakened world would also be destroyed. If we had known things would turn out like this, we would have risked our lives to stop the northern side from attacking Qin. Now, Qin is about to open the 6 paths of reincarnation and allow countless ghosts to invade the Heaven-Awakened world. When that time comes, the entire Heaven-Awakened world will be destroyed, One of the ancient clan's elders cried out in grief. The ancient clan's elders' expressions were quite unsightly. They had thought that Qin would definitely lose this time, and because of everything that had happened before, they did not want to get involved. However, they had never thought that Qin, who had nowhere else to go, would have such terrifying methods to open the 6 paths of reincarnation and destroy the heaven-awakened world. The square-faced, middle-aged official furiously roared. What can we do to stop all of this? Is Qin's legatee crazy? He's even willing to do something so crazy that he wants everyone in the world to die. Hearing his words, everyone fell silent. Now that things have come to this, what can we do to stop it? Could it be that we still have to negotiate? They had just reached an agreement, but because of a northern side's opening, they all betrayed Qin and tried to destroy Qin. How could Qin's legatee reconcile with them? Within Flower Moon, a well-behaved woman patted her chest as she said, "Luckily we didn't continue to oppose Qin, or else we would have died a horrible death." Another classical woman sighed. So what? The heaven-awakened world is facing destruction, which is not good for us at all. All of our businesses in the heaven-awakened world might be destroyed as well. A young girl with a baby voice said in agreement. It's most likely that Qin's legatee was angered to the point of exploding and tried to reconcile with the countless factions. However, those factions were merciless and wanted to destroy Qin. Now, Emperor Qin hates everyone in the world, which is why he opened the 6 paths of reincarnation. We're doomed this time. The other women sighed and nodded before discussing how to deal with this disaster. The countless factions outside the heaven-awakened world had never thought that instead of hearing news of Qin being destroyed, they would be met with a disaster of destruction. They had been waiting to watch a good show, but now their hearts sank. The 6 vortexes in the sky became larger and larger, and they covered hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The terrifying might they gave off caused the air to seem to freeze, and it was as if countless evil ghosts were attacking. Chapter 472. Roar, roar, roar. On the other side of the crack, the countless evil ghosts sensed the aura of living beings on this side and gave off deafening roars. Even though the crack was quite long, it was also quite thin, so the countless evil ghosts were unable to break through it and descend into the heaven-awakened world. However, when everyone in the heaven-awakened world heard the ferocious roars, they felt their scalps go numb and their hair stand on end as they felt an immense sense of danger. The entire sky was like a thin screen, and countless ghosts were on the other side, baring their fangs and claws. They looked incredibly ferocious, wanting to break through this thin screen and slaughter all living beings. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? A great calamity was about to descend, and countless people started to panic. They were at a loss as to what to do. Countless evil ghosts were about to descend, and they didn't have any confidence in being able to defend against them. Once the 6 paths of reincarnation were opened, countless evil ghosts would flood in, and their might wouldn't be any weaker than the undead disaster. In fact, they would be hundreds of times more powerful than the undead disaster. In terms of scale, there would be far more ghosts than the ocean of bones, and in terms of battle power, Qin skeletons had evolved step by step, so they wouldn't be much stronger than players. However, the ghosts in the 6 paths of reincarnation were different. There were countless types of ghosts, and they existed for different amounts of time. Those that existed for a short period of time were quite weak, but the longer they existed, the more monstrous they would be. There were stage 1 to stage 9 ghosts, and even stage 9 ghosts and above could appear. Right now, most people in the heaven-awakened world had less than stage 1 ghosts, so how could they defend against them? They would be completely slaughtered. It wasn't just China's factions that were at a loss. All of the factions in the world were at a loss. It was as if being slaughtered was their fate. The heaven-awakened world fell into chaos. Right now, countless people's hearts were filled with hatred, unwillingness, anger, and regret. If they had known that things would turn out like this, none of them would have been willing to betray Qin. After all, they would have been in a much better situation. However, it was too late to regret now. Right now, The crack was still quite thin, and even though there were countless ghostly chi flowing out, there was not a single ghost to be seen. Zhao Fu was expressionless as he raised his hand and grabbed at the air. The six paths demon images also grabbed at the air, and a massive power caused the entire sky to tremble. Bang! The sound of glass shattering rang out, and a thin crack suddenly extended into countless cracks before shattering like a mirror. A large black hole appeared in the sky. The other 5 rifts also shattered, and 6 enormous holes that were 10,000 kilometers wide appeared in the sky, giving off boundless ghostly chi. By now, the 6 paths of reincarnation had been completely opened, and there were no obstructions at all. Countless ghosts laughed evilly as they flooded into the heaven-awakened world. The heaven ghosts flooded into the heaven, and the atmosphere, and the heaven, and the heaven, and the world, and the heaven world. Suddenly, a massive dragon's roar sounded out, shaking the heavens. Everyone in the heaven-awakened world heard this dragon's roar. At the same time, 6 1,000-meter-long spears of light, giving off a thunderous aura, shot out from the sky. In just an instant, the 6 spears of light pierced through the hearts of the 6 paths demon images. The 6 paths demon images howled as they turned into black aura and dissipated. And spirits and ghosts and boom! An unbearable might descended, and the sky seemed to split apart. Countless rays of azure light shot out, and a massive figure gradually appeared. This was an incredibly large divine dragon, and its body covered the entire sky. It was covered with azure, jade-like scales, and it had 4 steel-like dragon claws. It had a pair of jade-like azure dragon horns, and a majestic and domineering head stretched out from the clouds as it looked at Zhao Fu. Under this terrifying might, Zhao Fu's body froze. This divine dragon's power surpassed anything Zhao Fu knew, and it was unimaginably powerful. Within his body, whether it was his nation armament or clan armament, they were all suppressed by a formless energy, unable to resist at all. Zhao Fu felt as if his body had sunk into an icy lake, and his entire body was icy cold. He felt incredibly shocked as he looked at the divine dragon in front of him. "Emperor, you've gone too far," the azure divine dragon said in an ancient voice as it looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu continuously searched for information about demon gods in his mind, and he finally found out what kind of existence this divine dragon was. "They wanted to destroy me, Qin, so I wanted them all to die. What's wrong with that?" Zhao Fu said with a trace of killing intent as he looked at the divine dragon. The divine dragon once again said, "If you killed them all, I wouldn't care, but if you opened the 6 paths of reincarnation and allowed countless ghosts to invade the heaven-awakened world, causing the entire heaven-awakened world to face destruction, I have to care." Zhao Fu did not say anything else. He understood that he had gone too far this time. More importantly, Zhao Fu could not defeat the divine dragon at all, and a casual attack from the divine dragon had been able to kill Zhao Fu's most powerful 6 paths demon images and suppress his nation armament and clan armament. It could be seen just how powerful and terrifying this divine dragon was. In front of it, Zhao Fu was simply too weak and could not resist at all. However, the 6 paths demon images were only clones that Zhao Fu had summoned, and they were much weaker than the real 6 paths demon images. If it was the real 6 paths demon images, they definitely would not have been killed so easily. However, with Zhao Fu's current strength, he could not summon the 6 paths demon images at all. Even if he could summon them, he would not be able to control them at all, and it was possible that he would suffer a backlash. Right now, Zhao Fu was simply too weak. However, even though this was the case, his original plan had been forcefully disrupted. He had spent so much money and resources, but he had not been able to use them at all, so Zhao Fu felt quite unwilling. Of course, Zhao Fu knew that the divine dragon definitely would not kill him. So he said, "I did go too far this time, but if I don't destroy them, they will gather again to destroy me, Qin. Lord Guardian, do you want me, Qin, to die?" The divine dragon realized this and fell silent for a moment before saying, "If you don't destroy the heaven-awakened world again, I can guarantee that you, Qin, will not be destroyed for 100 years. After 100 years, Qin will have the power to face all dangers." Chapter 473. All right, Lord Guardian, I can promise you that. I hope you could take care of me in the future. A smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and his attitude completely changed. Being able to obtain the Azure Dragon's powerful protection made Zhao Fu feel quite happy. Qin would not be in any danger within 100 years, and even if they gather hundreds of millions of people, Zhao Fu would not have to worry. Now that Zhao Fu knew the Azure Dragon's identity, he understood how powerful it was. It could use the world's energy, and in front of it, no one could resist at all. The Azure Dragon nodded, and its massive body twisted as it disappeared into the sky. Zhao Fu put away the Chaos Imperial Star, and the blood-red light faded as the world returned to normal. Countless people looked quite confused, not understanding what had happened. Wasn't the heaven-awakened world about to be destroyed, just as the 6 paths of reincarnation had opened? Why did it suddenly disappear? Even though they did not know what had happened, they knew that the calamity had stopped. Countless people couldn't help but loudly laugh. They had been given a new lease on life, and they felt incredibly fortunate. The scene of countless ghosts flooding into the heaven-awakened world was simply too terrifying. The countless factions did not understand what had happened. The 6 paths of reincarnation had disappeared, and they guessed that it had something to do with that dragon's roar. However, now that the 6 paths of reincarnation had disappeared, the heaven-awakened world had avoided a calamity. This was something worth celebrating. The entire world was filled with joy and laughter, and many people danced and sang to express their joy and excitement. Now that this matter had concluded, the world returned to normal. It had been nearly 2 months since the undead disaster had begun, and the 6 paths of reincarnation had begun. The 13 regions had been severely affected, and almost all creatures had disappeared. During this time, more than 100 million creatures had died, and more than 200 million players had died. The northern part of Huaxia fell into a state of great loss. Every region became sparsely populated, no longer as bustling as before, and became somewhat deserted. After this incident, it was impossible to make up for this loss in numbers in a short period of time, and countless factions were on the verge of collapse. Most of their members had died, and all sorts of resources had been lost. This caused the northern side's players' strength to fall back by a few months. Out of China's 4 cardinal directions, the northern side was the weakest, and if it fell back, it would continue to fall behind. In the future, the northern side would be weaker than the other regions. But who could he blame? They were the ones who stirred up trouble and had to bear the terrible consequences in the end. The main reason for this incident was that the leaders of the 10 or so factions had to be replaced. This was because the factions had suffered such great losses, so someone had to take responsibility, or else everyone would resist. As for Su Yin, he disappeared after this incident. No one knew where he went. It was as if he had vanished in a thin air. The ordinary people's losses were even worse. After dying, their cultivation, equipment, and skills would all disappear, leaving them with nothing. Now, they were filled with regret. After fighting for so long, they had returned to their starting point. Basically, no one dared to mention Qin anymore. Whenever they talked about this topic, they would automatically avoid talking about it. It could be seen how powerful Qin's deterrence was at this time. Although the 6 paths of reincarnation were closed this time, who knew if Prince Qin would go crazy and open it again? No one could be sure. Because of the opening of the northern side's passageway, the Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs had also stopped. Many people thought that Qin would be destroyed, and if Qin had been destroyed, how could they be stupid enough to join Qin? Before, they had been oppressed and threatened by Qin, which was why they had chosen to accept the Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs. If Qin had been destroyed, they would have been overjoyed. As such, the Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs had been stopped. It was a pity that they had lost miserably, and they had even dragged the entire heaven-awakened world into danger. If it wasn't for the 6 paths of reincarnation being stopped, they would not even know how they had died. Now, they knew how powerful Qin was, so they wanted to accept the Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs and receive Qin's protection so that they would no longer be threatened or attacked by Qin. However, even if they wanted to do this, they no longer had the chance. Qin had already sent out news that all Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs had been stopped. This caused countless factions to feel panic, as this meant that Qin would no longer accept anyone's surrender. Everyone would be his enemy, and the only outcome would be destruction. Countless factions' representatives regretfully and fearfully went to the Ying family, wanting to discuss things with Qin. However, the Ying family rejected all of them. All of the world's large factions started to investigate just what had happened. The 6 paths of reincarnation had definitely been stopped. And what was that dragon's roar? How was Prince Qin? These were all things that needed to be investigated. After all, they had to know about this, as they were worried that Prince Qin would do something even more terrifying. However, no matter how much they investigated, they could not find anything. The world's large factions could only send their representatives to express their goodwill. Even the Chinese government lowered their heads and sent people over. The ancient clans also wanted to ask about Prince Qin, and Flower Moon wanted to discuss working with Qin. However, they were all rejected. No matter who went, the Ying family still said the same thing. No matter who it is, we won't see them. This resolute attitude caused the countless factions to dejectedly return. At the same time, they felt even more curious as to what had happened and why Qin was so calm. Back in the heaven-awakened world, Zhao Fu was lying on a bamboo chair next to a small stream, holding a fishing rod as he leisurely fished. Because the weather had become cold, he could no longer sit on the ground, and there was a blanket on the bamboo chair. Ever since the matter had concluded, Zhao Fu had started to recover. After a few days of recuperation, Zhao Fu had gradually recovered from his skeletal appearance. His face now had some color, and he had gained some flesh on his body. However, it would take a long time for him to fully recover. After all, Zhao Fu had used too much essence blood, and he could not recover it in a short period of time. Zhao, try this, it's so sweet. A flower spirit with a small rose on her head said happily as she flew over to Zhao Fu while hugging a grape-like fruit. She was Rose, one of the flower spirits that Zhao Fu had taken in a long time ago. The other 2 flower spirits were sitting on Zhao Fu's body and happily eating fruits. Chapter 474. This little girl Asani, no matter who she was with, had a good relationship with. She was liked by many people and was very popular. Facing the fruit that Rose handed over, Zhao Fu opened his mouth and ate it. It was indeed quite sweet and tasty, but he did not know what kind of fruit it was. Seeing that Zhao Fu had eaten the fruit, Rose sat back on Zhao Fu's body and started to play with the other 2 flower spirits. They normally stayed in the medicine garden because they had the ability to reduce the time it took for plants to grow. This was especially so under Qin's nurturing, and their strength had reached stage 2. Their abilities were even more powerful, so they were sent to the medicine garden to speed up the growth of various spirit medicines. Because Zhao Fu was busy, he rarely saw them. This time, the 3 flower spirits came to find Zhao Fu. After all, during winter, countless flowers would no longer bloom. Even if they could speed up their growth, they would not be able to bloom because those flowers did not bloom in winter. The flowers no longer bloomed, and Qin City no longer had flowers everywhere. As such, the 3 flower spirits came to find Zhao Fu and wanted to see if Zhao Fu could resolve this issue so that Qin City could continue to be filled with flowers. After all, they loved this Qin City. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that this matter was quite easy to resolve. He just had to plant some flowers that would bloom in winter, such as plum trees, winter cherry trees, camellias, and so on. Even though there weren't many flowers that bloomed in the winter, there were still a few. The flowers that bloomed in the winter were different from the ones that bloomed at other times. They gave off a cold aura, which Zhao Fu liked. As such, Zhao Fu sent people to plant a few types of flowers in Qin City to resolve this issue. After this matter was resolved, the three flower spirits were naturally quite happy and stayed by Zhao Fu's side. They did not leave and continued to accompany Zhao Fu as he fished. By now, everything in Qin City had returned to normal, and the various organizations started to operate. First, the population had reached 1 million. Qin City now had 632 villages, and just based on the number of people that spawned in a single day, it had reached 10,000. The four-system main cities spawned around 2,000 or so people every day. With these villages, after 2 months, the population would definitely be quite high. With 1 million residents, Zhao Fu expanded the army to 400,000. 200,000 of them were Stage 1 soldiers, and the remaining 200,000 had decent cultivations because they had all used Stage 1 blood god pills. The undead army had destroyed the 8th region and slaughtered the four-system main cities, providing Qin City with 400,000 Stage 1 corpses. They had already used 200,000 of those corpses, and there were 200,000 left to provide Qin City with a large number of high cultivation soldiers. This time, Qin City had also obtained massive benefits. What made Zhao Fu the happiest was that the four-system main cities had allowed Qin City to have 4 city lords, greatly increasing their high-end battle strength. Moreover, there were also countless pieces of equipment, medicinal pills, and many resources. Putting aside what they had obtained from the system main cities, Qin City would not be able to sell off all of the equipment from the 15 million players in a short period of time, because there were simply too many of them. What was even more pitiful was the equipment that the 170 million players had. Each piece of equipment was worth 5 gold coins, which was worth 850 million gold coins. This was a terrifying figure, and it was hundreds of times more than Qin City's current wealth. However, at that time, there had been no time for him to pick up the equipment. All of the equipment, including the corpses, had been turned into nothingness by the shock waves from the 6 paths of reincarnation. This was a great pity, and after calming down, Zhao Fu felt quite pained. In terms of military affairs, Zhao Fu ordered the 400,000 soldiers to split into 4 teams and start a carpet search from the north, south, east, and west, destroying all of the villages in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. After taking control of the surrounding 10,000 kilometers, Zhao Fu had to consider taking down the Forest of Horrors. He had to speed up the process of restoring Qin City, as there was less and less time left. However, Zhao Fu still wanted to destroy Heavenstone City first, as this could only be done after his body recovered. Now that he had 4 city lords, there was no chance of failure for Zhao Fu's original plan to fail. Zhao Fu had been waiting for this day for a long time. In terms of business, Qin had opened up 92 regions, and all of the restaurants, merchant associations, and shops had reopened. Now, Zhao Fu was not worried about the northern side attacking him at all. After all, even if the northern side's factions weren't dead, they were crippled. How could they dare to attack Qin City? Now that Zhao Fu had given them a way out, they felt incredibly fortunate and did not dare to do anything. Now, Zhao Fu did not place the northern side's factions in his eyes at all. After dealing with things here, he would properly take care of them. At first, Zhao Fu had wanted to let them off, but they had repeatedly betrayed him and tried to destroy Qin City. Now, how could Zhao Fu spare them? With the Azure Dragon's protection, Zhao Fu was not afraid of them allying together. As such, he canceled the Qin writs and Holy Daughter writs, viewing everyone as Qin City's enemy. He would use his power to conquer them, and he would not be merciful at all. That's right. Zhao Fu knew the Azure Dragon's name. It was called the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon. The Sky Desolation Azure Dragon was not a monster, which meant that it was not a Lord-class creature or a King-class creature, but a guardian beast. Its duty was to protect a world, so it could use the world's power. It was incredibly powerful, and because it was a guardian beast, it had stopped Zhao Fu from opening the 6 paths of reincarnation, as that could destroy the Heaven Awakened world. As the guardian beast of this world, the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon naturally knew everything. And Zhao Fu was someone it paid close attention to, so it knew everything about Zhao Fu. It knew that Zhao Fu had killed a god and had information about a demon god. And it knew that Zhao Fu had the heaven and earth refining formation. It also knew some things that even Zhao Fu did not know about. Moreover, there was not just one guardian beast in this world. There were 3 others for a total of 4 guardian beasts. Even though the Sky Desolation Azure Dragon was an Azure Dragon, that did not mean that the other guardian beasts were the White Tiger, the Black Tortoise, and the Vermilion Bird. Back at the Great Qin Town's construction, the 4 stone roads had already been constructed, and the Great Qin City had been expanded to accommodate even more residents. At the same time, they were constructing commercial streets to promote the city's economic development. After all, there were more and more people, and they could not allow the city to be centralized. In the end, they started to produce large amounts of winter crops. Moreover, the underground city had been built for nothing. Chapter 475. Your Majesty, it's time for you to heal. An elf girl who looked 16 or 17 years old walked over to Zhao Fu with a slight blush on her face and bowed before saying in a small voice. She was Asani. Before, Asani's healing skills were already at the advanced level, and after such a long time, her healing skills had surpassed the pinnacle level and were at the Grandmaster level. She had great effects on healing and recovery. In Qin, only she had reached the Grandmaster level, and everyone else had only just reached the pinnacle level. At the same time, her grade was SSS grade. Qin didn't lack SSS grade corpses, as all of the city lords and the 3 great generals had SSS grade corpses. There were 16 corpses in total in the 4 system main cities, and Qin had obtained a large number of SSS grade medicinal pills during the disaster festival. Now that there were so many SSS grade corpses, Qin didn't lack SSS grade orbs. The reason Zhao Fu gave Asani a grade orb was because her performance in Qin had been quite good. Zhao Fu felt that he needed a top-tier healer in order to deal with some troublesome matters in the future. It wasn't just Asani. There were also 3 elders who had appeared in Qin: the blacksmith Wang Dao, the apothecary Zhang Baishu, and the tailor He Yun. In actuality, these were all support professions, but their effects were not inferior to main professions. This was because they embodied powerful support functions. Blacksmiths could forge higher-grade equipment, apothecaries could refine higher-grade medicinal pills, and tailors could create higher-grade defensive equipment. These 3 things were absolutely necessary in life, and they were incredibly useful. As such, they required people with high grades. After all, having high grades didn't just mean one's cultivation speed, but also their comprehension. Apart from them, Zhao Fu also gave Rhoda a reward. Most of Great Qin's legendary grade equipment had been forged by him, and he had contributed greatly to this, so he deserved this reward. Zhao Fu also gave the remaining grade orbs to other professions, but most of them were given to generals and civil officials. Li Si was still SS grade, not because Zhao Fu was unwilling to give him a grade orb, but because he was a historical figure. Zhao Fu felt that it was better to give him a grade orb. However, because Li Si was a civil official and did not need to fight, and the corpses of the historical generals were urgently needed by the other generals, Li Si had dragged it out until now. However, this was not a big deal. If the Heaven Awakened world devoured the real world, Li Si's fate seal would be undone, and his grade would automatically increase. Of course, Zhao Fu could have used the corpses of historical generals to help him level up. Following this, Zhao Fu received Asani's treatment. Her hands gave off a green light that was filled with the aura of life, and it covered Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's injured body quickly recovered. In actuality, Zhao Fu still had the royal wood sword, which could also heal him. However, even though the royal wood sword could provide a large amount of life force, it could not heal him. So Zhao Fu still had to eat healing pills and receive Asani's treatment. The treatment lasted for half an hour, and Asani put away the green light in her hands and looked at Zhao Fu with concern as she asked, "Your Majesty, how do you feel? How do you feel? Zhao Fu carefully sensed his body and found that it was much better, so he smiled and nodded. Is that so? That's great. Seeing that she had helped Zhao Fu, Asani happily smiled. It was very meaningful for her to be able to help others, especially Zhao Fu, the future ruler of Qin. After all, people like them had to rely on Zhao Fu in order to stay in Qin and have their current lives. Seeing her like this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but smile as he said, "All right, if you have anything to do, you can go back first." Asani hurriedly shook her head, indicating that there was nothing to do. Asani hurriedly shook her head, indicating that there was nothing to do. Asani, Asani, Asani. Seeing that Asani was done, the three flower spirits happily flew over and started to play with her. Seeing how happy they were, Zhao Fu felt quite happy, and he retracted his gaze and went back to cultivating. Time gradually passed, and Zhao Fu's body became better and better. On the 6th day, Zhao Fu's body had mostly recovered. Now, it was time to carry out his original plan, which was to destroy Heavenstone City. Zhao Fu asked his generals to gather the soldiers while he went to find Wu Binglin and asked for the latest information on Heavenstone City. Since he had decided to attack it, he needed to know what had happened and what had changed recently. After looking through the report, Zhao Fu found that Heavenstone City hadn't changed much, and it was more or less the same as before. The biggest factor in this battle was most likely the attitude of the three other system main cities. Right now, the attitude of the three system main cities was still unclear, and Zhao Fu couldn't tell if they would help Heavenstone City or not. As such, he had to make some preparations. However, Zhao Fu now had 5 city lords under his command, so there shouldn't be any problems. The main problem was the 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided to set up an isolation barrier. If they wanted to help Heavenstone City, he would immediately activate the isolation barrier to stop them from coming. Each system main city was tens of thousands of kilometers away from each other, so even if they sent their soldiers, it would take them at least a week to arrive. By then, Qin City would have long since conquered Heavenstone City. If they really dared to come, Zhao Fu would set up an ambush and take the opportunity to destroy the other 3 system main cities in one fell swoop, taking over all of East Green. Zhao Fu first gathered his generals to discuss and come up with a strategy before starting the plan to destroy Heavenstone City. Large numbers of Great Qin's soldiers orderly stepped into the teleportation channel, giving off an austere aura. It now seemed like a majestic nation. Zhao Fu put on his black cloak and went to the innermost part of East Green to look around. East Green was quite rocky, and there weren't many trees. Because there were many creeks and the air was quite humid, the moss here was quite lush. By now, Zhao Fu had already used stealth and concealed all of his aura as he flew in the sky. Zhao Fu was currently searching for the boss of East Green's region. East Green's region creatures were an important part of his plan, as they were all quite big. For example, the Forest of Horror's 6-eyed flood dragon and Seeping River's fish monsters were 1,000 meters long, so they would be quite easy to find. Zhao Fu searched for a while in the innermost part of East Green, but he didn't find anything. Zhao Fu felt quite confused as he searched again, and he finally found something. The boss of East Green's region was a rock giant that was 1,000 meters tall. Its entire body was made of dark gray rocks, and its body was covered with green moss. Chapter 476. The rock giant rarely moved, and it spent most of its time in a deep sleep. Normally, it wouldn't wake up unless something big happened, which suited Zhao Fu's plan. Suddenly, Zhao Fu looked over and saw a 2-meter-tall tree next to the rock giant. Whether it was the tree's branches or leaves, they were all blood red, and there were 9 fruits on the tree. These fruits were as big as fists and looked humanoid. They were purple and gave off a mysterious luster, and it was clear that they weren't low-grade spirit fruits. What's more, Zhao Fu happened to recognize this fruit. It was the fruit of life that Zhao Fu was looking for. The fruit of life was the main ingredient for refining the fate-changing pill. The fate-changing pill was a pill recipe that Zhao Fu had exchanged for during the disaster festival, and its effects were incredibly powerful. It was incredibly powerful, and it could raise anyone's grade below a grade by 1. With this pill and the heaven and earth refining formation, Qin would be able to nurture a large number of S-grade soldiers. When Zhao Fu saw this fruit, he couldn't help but feel quite happy. However, right now, Zhao Fu couldn't touch the fruit tree. It was evident that it was incredibly important to the rock giant, and if Zhao Fu did anything, he would definitely wake it up. Qin had to obtain this fruit of life, so I'll leave it there for now. I'll come back and dig it up when the time comes. After making this decision, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and left the depths of East Green. Ever since that incident, Heavenstone City's defenses have been quite tight. Shi Jian knew that Zhao Fu would come to find him sooner or later, so he had made all sorts of defensive measures to prevent anything unexpected from happening. Shi Jian's biggest weakness was his son, Shirwan. If he could capture Shirwan, there would be nothing Shi Jian could do. Perhaps because Shi Jian realized this, he was afraid that others would attack Shirwan. As such, Shirwan spent most of his time within the city lord's residence, and he was protected by Lu Sheng, one of the 2 remaining great generals of Heavenstone City. Without Shirwan's destruction, Heavenstone City became much better. Many players came to Heavenstone City to develop, causing it to become much livelier and more prosperous. Even though Zhao Fu had been listed as a criminal by Heavenstone City, with Zhao Fu's strength, no one would be able to discover him. However, because he was a criminal, his stats would be weakened by 30%. Even so, Zhao Fu was still quite powerful. Zhao Fu hid his aura and activated Stealer, causing his body to become invisible. He first snuck into Heavenstone City before entering the city hall. After searching the city hall for a while, Zhao Fu found where Shirwan was. Shi Jian never would have thought that Zhao Fu's growth would surpass his, nor would he have thought that Zhao Fu would dare to infiltrate his city hall. The city hall was at the center of a system main city, and ordinary people wouldn't dare to enter. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. Although Shirwan had become a lot more sensible, and many soldiers had changed their impression of him, Shirwan still had some problems. Even though it was daytime, within a luxurious room, Shirwan was forcefully plucking at the bodies of 3 flirtatious female attendants, causing them to pant. Lu Sheng, who was standing guard outside, had a strange expression on his face. Only when Zhao Fu saw Lu Sheng did he discover where Shirwan was. Lu Sheng's strength was still at stage 3, but in front of Zhao Fu, it was nothing. After all, Zhao Fu's cultivation was only a step away from stage 3, and he had countless other powers supporting him. However, Zhao Fu still carefully took out a dagger and slowly approached Lu Sheng. Because Zhao Fu was an assassin, it wasn't difficult for him to do this. Art! The moans from within the room were incredibly loud, and this slightly distracted Lu Sheng, allowing Zhao Fu to get within 5 meters of Lu Sheng. At that moment, Zhao Fu's body pounced over like a cheetah. Only then did Lu Sheng instinctively sense something, and he was given a big fright. However, it was too late. By now, Zhao Fu had arrived behind Lu Sheng and covered Lu Sheng's mouth with one hand while gripping the dagger with the other. He didn't hesitate at all as he slit Lu Sheng's throat, ending his life. Before, with Zhao Fu's strength, he would have been able to put up a bitter fight against Lu Sheng. However, things were different now, and Lu Sheng was much weaker than before. Following this, Zhao Fu put Lu Sheng's corpse into his spatial ring. Zhao Fu lightly opened the door to the room, and because the 4 people on the bed were in the middle of doing it, they didn't notice him. Young master, you're so amazing. A flirtatious female attendant under Wen's body said as she panted with a red face. However, at that moment, 3 black sword lights shot out and pierced into the heads of the 3 female attendants, killing them on the spot. Shirwan was given a big fright, and he quickly turned around to find that a black-cloaked person had appeared in the room. You are? Shirwan wanted to loudly ask who this person was and why he had barged into his room. At the same time, he wanted to call someone in. Back then, because Shirwan had been drunk, he didn't know what Zhao Fu looked like, so he didn't realize that the person in front of him was the person that his father had told him to be careful of. However, before he could finish speaking, Zhao Fu's body flashed and appeared beside him, knocking him unconscious. Then, he grabbed the bedsheet and wrapped it around the naked man. Before, Zhao Fu had been able to use his invisibility to easily sneak into the city lord's residence without being discovered. However, now that Zhao Fu was carrying such a large group of people, it was impossible for him to leave so easily. As such, Zhao Fu didn't bother hiding anything. He grabbed Shi and rushed into the sky, flying out of the city lord's residence. This sudden turn of events gave everyone in the city lord's residence a big fright. Shi immediately sensed this and rushed out of the room. At the same time, Shi sensed that his son's aura had disappeared, and he looked at the person being held by the cloaked figure in the distance. He roared and exploded out with a powerful aura as he leapt up and rushed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was incredibly fast, and he was like a black ray of light as he shot out of the city lord's residence. Shi was slightly behind, but he still chased after Zhao Fu with all his might. The two of them gradually closed in on each other, and Zhao Fu didn't pay any attention to Shi, who was chasing after him. He only glanced at him before continuing onwards. "Give me back my son." Seeing the familiar figure in front of him, Shi's heart sank, and he once again exploded out with a powerful aura, causing his flying speed to increase by many times. However, Zhao Fu still didn't pay any attention to Shi and continued onwards. Just as the distance between them became smaller and smaller, two people giving off powerful auras rushed out and stopped Shi. Chapter 477. Sar was the city lord of a basic city, while Meng Kuo was the city lord of the system main city. Their combined strength was enough to stall Shi, which was why Zhao Fu wasn't worried about Shi chasing after him. He had long since made preparations. Wang Jian, Wei Liao, and Bai Qi stayed near the three other system main cities to prevent them from interfering. If it wasn't for the fact that the other three system main cities wanted to interfere, Zhao Fu would have been able to lure Shi out and kill him. After all, with Zhao Fu's help, Qin would have 6 city lords, and with 6 against 1, Shi would definitely lose. However, this wasn't Zhao Fu's original plan. He could only obtain the fruit of life by himself. Zhao Fu continued to fly towards the depths of East Green. Shi looked at the two people in front of him and felt quite startled. He could sense that one of them was a system main city's power, while the other was a basic city's power. With his own strength, it would be very difficult for him to escape from them. "Sirs, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business," Shi said to Meng Kuo and Sar with a cold expression. He still didn't know that Meng Kuo and Sar were Zhao Fu's subordinates, and he thought that they were reinforcements that Zhao Fu had invited. He had no idea that Zhao Fu was so powerful. Of course, Meng Kuo and Sar ignored Shi's words and took out their weapons. Shi coldly harumphed and took out a large saber, using his full strength. He had to catch up to Zhao Fu, or else his son would be in danger. He slashed out, sending out a massive saber light towards Meng Kuo and Sar. Meng Kuo and Sar also unleashed their City Lord Seal's power to defend against Shi's attack. Very quickly, the three of them started a massive battle in the sky, and the terrifying shockwaves caused the clouds and clouds to howl, causing countless birds and beasts to flee. It was as if a massive disaster had descended. Meng Tian and Tian didn't attack, instead focusing on defense. Their main task was to stall Shi so that Zhao Fu could carry out his plan. Zhao Fu quickly went to the depths of the Forest of Horrors. Looking at the sleeping rock giant, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and took out a small incense stick. This incense stick was very short and looked like it could burn for 3 minutes. It had 5 colors and gave off a dreamlike fragrance. This was the dream incense, and it had a powerful effect that could cause the boss of a region to fall into a deep sleep. It was a pity that it could only fall into a deep sleep, and once it suffered immense pain, it would wake up. Otherwise, it would have been possible to kill this stone giant. Zhao Fu took out a match and lit the dreamlike incense. He held his breath because if Zhao Fu breathed in the dreamlike incense, he would also fall asleep. There wasn't much time left, so Zhao Fu quickly started to act. He first placed the dreamlike incense next to the rock giant. The rock giant was already asleep, and after breathing in the dreamlike incense, it fell into a deep sleep. Following this, Zhao Fu took out a sturdy iron cage and placed it next to the tree of life. He threw Sherwin into the cage and locked it up, then took out a few chains and tied them around the rock giant's body. This iron cage had been specially made by Zhao Fu, and it was incredibly sturdy. It contained some legendary grade materials, and it could withstand a full-strength attack from City Lord. Following this, Zhao Fu smiled. Of course, it was time to dig up the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life was a rare stage 6 spirit fruit, and it was even more difficult to find than ordinary stage 7 spirit fruits. It was incredibly precious, and Zhao Fu had never thought that he would find one here. As such, Zhao Fu was incredibly careful as he dug up the Tree of Life and put it into his king's ring. On the other side, Meng Tian and Zhao Fu followed their plan and stalled Shi Jian for a while before leaving. Of course, Shi Jian wouldn't chase after them, and he instead quickly ran in the direction that Zhao Fu had disappeared. By now, the dreamlike incense's scent had completely disappeared, and Zhao Fu went into stealth, hiding his aura. Zhao Fu had thought that after the dreamlike incense's scent disappeared, the rock giant would wake up because of the Tree of Life's disappearance. However, Zhao Fu discovered that he was wrong. The rock giant continued to fall into a deep sleep. It seemed that the dreamlike incense's effects weren't as simple as it seemed. Even after burning the dreamlike incense, it could still cause a creature to fall into a deep sleep. Without an external force, it was possible that the creature would never wake up. Zhao Fu had never thought that this would happen. If he had known that this would happen, he wouldn't have used up all of the dreamlike incense, and he could have used it 2 more times. However, it was too late now. Since the rock giant continued to fall into a deep sleep, Zhao Fu had nothing to fear. He drew the Sin Dragon sword and flew above the rock giant, because Shi Jian had caught up. Shi Jian stopped and stood in the air, furiously looking at the scene in front of him. A black-cloaked figure giving off a powerful aura and holding a sword stood above the rock giant. Under the cloak, there was a pair of blood-red eyes that gave off a mocking gaze as he looked at Shi Jian. Next to the rock giant, Shi Jian's son was locked in an iron cage. The black-cloaked figure's goal was obvious. He wanted Shi Jian to fight the rock giant. In order to save his son, Shi Jian had to fight the rock giant. "Sir, you're too despicable." Shi Jian coldly looked at Zhao Fu. He knew that this day would come, but he had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful. Just from his aura alone, Zhao Fu was no weaker than him, and he also had a nation armament and clan armament. Despicable. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he said, "Could it be that only you can do evil, and I have to do good?" Hearing this, Shi Jian felt quite furious, but he suppressed it and said, "Heavenstone City was in the wrong before, but Heavenstone City paid a heavy price. Back then, you only lost 10 or so people, but Heavenstone City lost over 10,000 soldiers and countless residents. I believe that this matter ends here, and Heavenstone City will not make any trouble for you." "Ha ha!" Hearing Shi Jian's words, Zhao Fu loudly laughed as he said, "You still don't understand, right? It was I, Qin City, who made trouble for you. Even though 10 or so people died, they were all Qin citizens. This enmity has been settled, and it's time to take revenge." After speaking, Zhao Fu raised the Sin Dragon sword and sent his power into it, preparing to forcefully awaken the sleeping rock giant. "Wait!" Seeing this, Shi Jian was greatly shocked and hurriedly called out. Zhao Fu stopped and looked at Shi Jian as he said, "What else do you have to say?" Shi Jian deeply breathed in and calmed himself before saying, "I can give you some compensation to resolve this enmity. I'll do my best to satisfy you." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.